Peace, love, and prosperity to all of humanity on planet Earth. This is Abdul Smith Bey, public public servant of AMPAG. Today, um, today we'll be going over the charter once again. Fourth part to the charter. It's going to take a while for us to get through the charter because in between time, in between the charter, or as I'm going over the charter, we're also taking a look at other points of interest regarding statehood, international law, and the protocols necessary to bring about our liberation from the occupation that we're dealing with regarding the United States. Example, last week we discussed disarmament as established in the Charter of the United Nations. And we showed how the charter is essentially has the spirit of the Treaty of the Act of Algeciras in it, right? Essentially, it's based in Moroccan law. So, as we pointed out last week, the Act of Algeciras, Chapter 2, deals with control over the weapons of war and any and all components to manufacture weapons. It falls under the control of the Moorish government, right? The Moroccan governments and the Moxin. However, we have been acquiescing since I don't know how long actually, since I don't know, I mean since 1880 plus, right? And the European powers such as Spain, France, and Germany, I believe it's Germany, was supposed to work with the Sultan to bring the Moors back into the constitutional code of government, train them in the process, and they failed to do so. So essentially, they're all derelict in their duties, which is why the Treaty of Fez came into existence, because they gave France that authority. And France is the one who signed off on the League of Nations and the United Nations. And lo and behold, the United Nations is carrying on that tradition established in the Act of Algeciras, dealing with peace and security on planet Earth and disarmament, amongst many other things. And this is how we're able to prove that the charter is based in Moroccan law, our laws, right? So we got a special treat for today. We're going to take a look at what our good brother, revolutionary, freedom fighter, Malik Shabazz, Malcolm X, had to say about colonialism and the United Nations in his world-renowned speech, The Ballad of the Bullet. However, we're not going to go through the entire speech. We're just going to touch on a specific part of the speech, perhaps 5 minutes of it, and then we'll discuss it. And then from there, we'll move on to other points of interest. With that said, Sister McCarthy, you please help out with that?
Islam, were you sharing your screen, by the way?
Do you want me to do that right now?
Yeah, yes, ma'am, you do it.
All right.
I'm going to share the screen.
Let me share my screen. Hold on. Thank you. I said that.
Take it away, Sayaraha.
Now I'm disabled. Now I can't do it.
Hakeem will take care of that. He disabled you. He'll fix it.
Islam. Let me see.
It's an excellent speech. The entire speech gives me goosebumps. And I've heard the speech before, but that was in my Negro stage, my Black Power stage, right? My Black nationalism stage of life. And now that I have increased my degrees in international law and statehood, it in hindsight, that speech actually went over my head at the time. Now I see the power in that speech. Are you ready, Sister Makara? Or are you still working it out?
You should be able
Yeah,
to now.
it's released now. Okay, well, hold on.
Okay.
It may be best to make her co-host as well. That way I can turn it off for everybody else.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me go right now. I'm gonna turn it up. All right, I'm gonna play.
And when the sun comes down, goes down, and it's dark, it's even Steven.
You got it turned up? We can't hear it.
You can't hear it. You can hear me though, right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Because you could hear it before, right?
I did hear it, yes.
I'm not doing anything different.
It's not playing.
It's not playing now, but he said when it was playing, you couldn't hear it.
Play it again.
All right.
So it's the ballot or the bullet.
Did you hear that?
I did hear it, but it's choppy. It's not playing clear for some reason.
Okay, my volume's all the way up. It's fine on my end.
I hear you clearly and I hear you well.
Uh-huh.
So I should be able to hear the
Let me
speech
turn the
pretty well.
volume up. Let me turn it up on the video. Okay, let
There
me
you
try
go.
it one more time.
Today, our people can see that we're faced with a government conspiracy. Government has failed us. The senators who are filibustering concerning your and my rights, that's the government. Don't say it's Southern senators. This is the government. This is the government filibuster. It's not a segregationist filibuster. It's the government filibuster. Any kind of activity that takes place on the floor of the Congress or the Senate, that's the government. Any kind of dilly-dallying, that's the government. Any kind of pussyfooting, that's the government. Any kind of act that's designed to delay or deprive you and me right now of getting full rights, that's the government that's responsible. And anytime you find the government involved in a conspiracy to violate the citizenship or the civil rights of a people, then you are wasting your time going to that government expecting redress. Instead, you have to take that government to the world court and accuse it of genocide and all of the other crimes that it is guilty of today. For those of us whose political and economic and social philosophy is black nationalism have become involved in the civil rights struggle. We have injected ourselves into the civil rights struggle, and we intend to expand it from the level of civil rights to the level of human rights. As long as you're fighting on the level of civil rights, you're under Uncle Sam's jurisdiction. You're going to his court expecting him to correct the problem. He created the problem. He's the criminal. You don't take your case to the criminal, you take your criminal to court.
I just think it's so powerful that it's blocking out because they don't want us to hear it. You see what I'm saying?
So, right. Hit play. Let's see what we can do.
All right. But at least you got the caption. You can see the captions, right?
You can see the caption easily.
All right.
Trample upon the human rights of the people of South Africa. They were taken to the UN. When the government of Portugal began to trample upon the rights of our brothers and sisters in Angola, it was taken before the UN. Why, even the white man took the Hungarian question to the UN, and just this week, Chief Justice Goldberg was crying over 3 million Jews in Russia about their human rights, charging Russia with violating the UN Charter because of its mistreatment of the human rights of Jews in Russia. Now you tell me, how can the plight of everybody on this earth reach the halls of the United Nations and you have 22 million Afro-Americans whose churches are being bombed, whose girls are being murdered, whose leaders are being shot down in broad daylight? Now you tell me the leaders of this struggle have never taken it before the United Nations.
All right, sister, you could pause it and you can basically stop it. We got most of what we wanted to see. It's not playing properly. It's I'm disappointed in this. Okay, so you see, for the most part, what he was saying. I hate that it didn't play the way I wanted it to play, but thank you, Sister Makara. Appreciate that so much. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, you're welcome.
So as you see, what did he say? Right? He said that he said, first of all, the black nationalism ideology that he was coming with was to inject itself into the civil rights movement and expand it. What did he say that we need to expand it to? Were you guys paying attention?
Yes, he said we got
Human rights.
human rights. Yeah.
And if you continue with civil rights, whose jurisdiction you're under?
Yep.
Um,
United
United
States.
States of America.
And if you're gonna take the criminals of the United States to court, what court should you be taking them to?
The ICC.
Criminal court.
The UN Court of Justice.
The
Court.
UN.
Yeah, he
Court.
said United Nations. Yeah.
You
And
don't
then
take
he
them
also
to,
said,
you don't take them to their courts. You don't take them to the federal United States courts, right? The Supreme Court. You take them to the World Court, right?
Mhm.
What happened with South Africa and Angola? What did he say that South Africa and Angola did?
They took them to the
Take 'em to
United
court.
Nations.
The
Court.
UN, take them to the UN.
Justice Goldberg was crying over these Jews
Mm-hmm.
that he was going to take them to the World Court because what were they violating?
Genocide.
No, not the charge. What were they violating?
human rights.
Human rights.
They were violating the Charter.
Yeah, they were violating the charter.
The UN Charter is based in what? Human rights. So is it not safe to say that Brother Malcolm gave us the answers to the test in 1964?
He also
Yes.
spoke on the government.
What was that?
He also spoke on forming your own government. He said that.
That's right. Right? Because you needed to form your own government to go to the United Nations. So he also said, how is it that the plight of all the other nations is being heard at the United Nations, but over here, 22 million African Americans, Black Americans, whatever, are having their churches bombed, their children raped, et cetera, and our plight is not being heard at the United Nations. See, in that part of the speech, he started calling all the Negro leaders sellouts for not making these moves. So this was in 1964. He's telling us that we were supposed to go to the United Nations, but if you go to the United Nations, you need to go as a state, right? So what is the philosophy that he was coming with? Black nationalism. What's the key word? Nationalism, right? Nationalism essentially means statehood, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So why was it that the Grand Chiefs of the time, why is it that they did not approach Brother Malcolm, who has the title Ale in his name, him to the side and said, Brother Malcolm, let's talk. We're not Black. Your teacher, Elijah Muhammad, was a student of Noble Jew Ali. His teacher, Fard Muhammad, was a student of Noble Jew Ali. And the real truth of the matter, good brothers, that we are actually Moors, Moroccans to be specific. Why is it that when he was delivering that speech and every other speech that during that time, why was it that there weren't any fezzes surrounding him to protect him? Furthermore,
They was hiding in the temples.
that was hiding in the temples. Furthermore, why is it that during the height of the civil rights movement, right? The Black struggle of the 1960s. We all know these historical events. Why is it that no one saw fezzes out there? What did we see? Black Fist, Black Panthers, the RBG flag, the red, black, and green flag, the RBG conscious revolutionaries, the Black Liberation Army, right? The Nation of Islam, even through Malcolm, really. Why is it that Farrakhan, when he took the seat after Elijah passed away, why is it that Farrakhan didn't carry the torch? Why is it that Elijah Muhammad during that time had Malcolm murdered? The Nation of Islam had Malcolm murdered. Why did they murder him? Because in that speech, he was talking black nationalism. He went off the script that was set for him through the Nation of Islam. He went off the script. The script was religion. See, the thing is in that speech he was saying, we've got a lot of Negro preachers of many different denominations, ministers of many different denominations, Christian, Muslim, etc. And he made the point. We're not being murdered and attacked and oppressed because you're a Christian and I'm a Muslim. We're being attacked because we're black men and black people in America. So the only thing that we can do to bring our get rid of our differences is to leave our religious beliefs at home, in the closet. Out here in the world, it's the philosophy that would bring us together is black nationalism, i.e. statehood. We can all come together under one philosophy, which would be nationalism, not religion. Today in 2023, going on 2024, 60 years later, the Moors are still in the temple talking about praise Allah. Why is it that it took 35 till I was 35 before I learned about who Noble Drew Ali was and what the Moor Science Temple of America was? I had already known about Malcolm X. I had already known about Martin Luther King. Hell, I already knew about Marcus Garvey, Huey P. Newton, Bobby Seale, Fred Hampton. You guys are looking at a for real revolutionary. Like I used to be a Black Panther for real. But except it was a new Black Panther Party, which was the offshoot to the original Black Panther Party, which was a FBI operation. I didn't know that.
And all of those organizations, groups, were under the premise that we came from Africa over here on slave ships.
Yeah, that's, of course, yeah, right? You know? But the real question is, why is it that the temples didn't approach Brother Malcolm, recognizing that he was bringing the real truth about what we needed, except his concept was black nationalism, black, the word black, and that we came from Africa. In that same speech, we weren't able to get to it because it was chopping up. Perhaps I'll try to do it again next week. He talked about colonialism and that we were being colonized. There was about 5 minutes worth of that from the 42-22 minute mark. If you guys want to check it out on your own time, what was it called? Let's see. In fact, let me share the screen. Why am I not sharing the screen? Malcolm X's legendary speech, The Ballad or the Bullet. Annotations and subtitles. Pull that up, y'all, and and if you don't want to listen to the whole thing, it's 52 minutes. The germane aspect of this speech is on the 42 minute and 22 second mark. Write that down. 42 minute, 20-second mark. Malcolm X's legendary speech, The Ballad or the Bullet, in parentheses, annotations and subtitles. Go listen to it, at least just the 42-minute mark. And you'll see that what we're doing today has Brother Malcolm sitting up in his grave with a big smile from ear to ear. Because up until now, he's been rolling in his grave, pissed off at his people, seeing us as chumps. Because he already was calling us chumps. Why was he calling us chumps? Because the number one reason why is because we weren't protecting who? The most heavily attacked person in American society. I'm going to ask you all a question. Who was the most attacked person in American society? And it still is till today. Who is the most under attack person in American society? Y'all know the answer to that. Our women. So if a nation of people, if within a nation of people, the men don't protect their women, it indeed, without a doubt, makes you a chump, a coward, a punk. And Malcolm had no problems reminding all the brothers of that time that that's the status that y'all fall under because you're allowing this man to put his hands on our women. Would you guys agree with that? Yes or no?
Yes.
The answer is of course.
Yes.
Of course.
Yes, of course.
Point of
And
privilege.
it still stands today, y'all. She is the most disrespected. And now the brothers nowadays, they, including me from time to time, I'm a victim of it as well. We complain about the so-called quote unquote black woman's attitude. Well, she's pissed the hell off at us. I've always been into hip hop growing up. And back in the days, especially through Death Row, right? Snoop Dogg and all them, they had all the songs going against the sisters, B's and H's. B's ain't ish, but H's and tricks. You know, I can't use the word. It sounds corny when I say it that way, but you know, y'all get the point. There was a lot of B and H's flying all over the place as it related to our sisters. To the point where Queen Latifah had to come in and say, "Who you calling a B?" Queen Latifah had to come in and shut that down. To include making songs like UNITY. She was calling for unity. I don't know what happened later on, you know, now she didn't flip the switch. All of them have. But y'all get the point. You know, in the 60s, we came with all these movies. The Mac, right? I can't even remember half of them, but all these pimp movies. Well, who were these black pimps pimping? The black women. It became a thing based on Hollywood programming. Now we want to be pimps. And now we out here pimping our sisters. Come on now. Can you blame that on the white man? Yeah, I guess you can, because he did finance Hollywood and that particular programming. But we didn't have to succumb to it. But we did. And then the time changed, and then it went from pimping women and all that to now being gangsters and killing each other and the Crips and the Bloods, and it's been a mess. No worries, though. This is a new era in time now, right? And things are changing for the best. Why? Because knowledge is free at the WRC, and we're bringing back the principles of Moroccan nationalism that Brother Malcolm, right, tried to warn us about, tried to tell us about. So today we'll be talking about human rights, because protecting our women is based in what? Human rights. We have a right as a people, as men, to protect our women and children, by the way. Let's not forget them. But there ain't no children without the women, so they're one and the same. There ain't no children without men either, no doubt. We're all in this together. But the protectors of the nation and the protectors of the household are the men. And that's the reason why today, in today's society, you see that the black man has been totally emasculated. Now he walks around with a purse and his hair in a bun and his little tight jeans and his little skirts, all these rappers, Young Thug, etc. were promoting this. There was a time when the back in the 90s, the rappers used to walk around in army fatigues and Timberland boots, high-tech boots, Malcolm X t-shirts, Malcolm X hats. That was a scary sight to white America. They had to dumb that down. They had to get rid of that. And what you see today, and they were very articulate and very intelligent, very articulate, very intelligent, very creative, and the subject matter always was surrounded around what? Revolutionaryism, Public Enemy, Ice Cube, all these types of rappers. Now they're dumbed down. All they do is mumble all over the daggone mic. They just mumble. I can't understand a word coming out of their mouth because they just mumble. Men don't mumble. Men speak, enunciate their words. You only mumble when you got something to hide. Someone who's mumbling when they speak to you, they're hiding something. You got to say, bro, speak up. I don't understand nothing that you're saying. So why in the world did this music thing turn into mumbling? Because they don't have nothing constructive to say. We've been under attack in so many ways. And the revolutionary, manly, alpha male, warrior-like spirit of these brothers in the 90s has totally been killed off. Now it's a bunch of little girls with purses who claim to be men. They ain't nothing but women. Cowards, chumps, punks. So let's talk about human rights. What are human rights? The human rights section of the UN multidimensional integrated stabilization mission in Mali, MINUSMA, supports programs for persons with disabilities run by a local association. The woman at left makes soap, right? As you see on the picture. The man at the right is a shoe crafter, okay? Can somebody help me out with the read for human rights?
Islam. Human rights. What are human rights? Human rights are rights inherited to all human beings, regardless of race, sex, nationality, ethnicity, language, religion, or any other status. Human rights include the right to life and liberty, freedom from slavery and torture, freedom of opinion and expression, the right to work and education, and many more. Everyone is entitled to these rights without discrimination.
Islam. What are human rights? Human rights are inherent to all human beings. All human beings. Not just us. So when you talk about the upliftment of fallen humanity, as we, the Moors, have been tasked with all our lives, and when I say all our lives, I'm not talking about within our lifetime, I'm talking about the life of the nation since time immemorial. We've always been the ones who uplifted fallen humanity. All human beings, regardless of your race, sex, nationality, ethnicity, language, religion, or any other status. So the upliftment of fallen humanity is not limited to the Moors. White people deserve human rights. Why would we take that away from them? Right? Do we want to be just like the colonists, or do we want to show something different? Didn't Noble Ali say love instead of hate? The five-pointed star on the Moroccan flag, doesn't that represent love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice? Those principles are afforded to all human beings, but it's not being enforced. Well, it is being enforced, but it's not necessarily being respected. See, you can have laws, right? There's laws that people break all day, every day. You ain't supposed to be robbing nobody, but people still do it, right? Well, then once they do it, then you enforce that law. So the United Nations, they have laws in place and the enforcement of it. But obviously you've got belligerent states who still participate in those activities. No different than you will have belligerent human beings who still participate in breaking laws. You got states who still can participate in breaking laws. And the main reason why these states on planet Earth are belligerent and continue to in many ways break those laws is because guess who's not home? Mama and daddy. Mama and daddy still on vacation thinking that they Negroes, blacks, coloreds, and Moorish Americans. We're still outside of the constitutional fold of government. Or we were. Times are changing now, and it's changing quite rapidly and dramatically. Keep in mind, we are getting ready to ramp it up. We're starting to become a little bit more aggressive against the United States under what we call Operation Swarm. Why we call it that? Because all of our several states are getting ready to swarm the United States with all types of documents under what's called a Declaration of Intervention, right? Erga omnes parties, class action lawsuit. We ain't playing games with these colonists. And keep in mind that colonist doesn't have a face to it. It's an action. You got Negro, black colonists and obstructionists. The obstructionists will be dealt with as well. Who are the obstructionists? Farrakhan, Taj Tariq Bey, Al Sharpton. Yes, I did put his name in that same bag. And anyone on the line, please tell me I'm lying if you're in your feelings. This is not the class for you. I don't care about elder. I don't care about matriarch. I care about your character. You mean to tell me that because you're of an older age, you're automatically not a sellout because you're an elder? Come on, are you serious? You think because your gender is female that you're automatically not a sellout? Come on, let's be real. I don't care. I'm starting to get a little bit frustrated because the more I study, the more I'm realizing how bad we've been sold out by our people. And it's also becoming even more clear what Taj Tariq Bey has done to us. So I'll say it again. If you don't like me going in on Taj, exit left, please. Human rights include the right to life and liberty, freedom from slavery and torture, freedom of opinion and expression, the right to work and education, and many more. Everyone is entitled to these rights without discrimination. So we want human rights. So why would we deny that to someone else? Which in international law, by the way, is known as just cogence.
International human rights laws. International human rights laws lays down the obligations of governments to act in certain ways or to refrain from certain acts in order to promote and protect human rights and fundamental freedoms of individuals or groups. One of the great achievements of the United Nations is the creation of a comprehensive body of human rights laws, a universal and internationally protected code to which all nations can subscribe and all people aspire. The United Nations has defined a broad range of internationally accepted rights, including civil, cultural, economic, political, and social rights. It has also established mechanisms to promote and protect these rights and to assist states in carrying out their responsibilities. The foundations of this body of law are the Charter of the United Nations and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, adopted by the General Assembly in 1945 and 1948, respectively. Since then, the United Nations has gradually expanded human rights laws to encompass specific standards for women, children, persons with disabilities, minorities, and other vulnerable groups who now possess rights that protect them from the discrimination that had long been common in many societies.
Thanks, sister. Appreciate that. Let's go up real quick. So what does it say here? One of the great achievements of the United Nations is the creation of a comprehensive body of human rights law, right? So what are they doing with that? What are they doing with that? What they're doing is our job because we're not there to enforce human rights, i.e., the upliftment of fallen humanity.
Mm-hmm.
That's our job. A universal and internationally protected code to which all nations can subscribe and all people aspire. The United Nations has defined a broad range of internationally accepted rights, including civil, cultural, economic, political, and social rights. Civil, cultural, so it ain't just civil rights. It's also cultural, economic, political, and social rights. The only thing they gave us was civil.
Mm-hmm.
It has also established, and it was, and we had to contract bunions in order to get it. We had to march all over the place and sing all kinds of songs in order to get it. So it's and this is in 1945 and 1948, respectively, right? So these laws were already in place, but we were out there marching, begging for it. We weren't supposed to be marching and begging for it. We were supposed to enforce it against the colonists. Through what? Black nationalism, or better yet, Moroccan nationalism. We failed to do that. Can you blame that on the millions of people that were marching? No. They didn't really know any better. You know who you blame it on? Farrakhan, Martin Luther King, which, Martin Luther King did course correct. We got to give him credit for that. I have integrated my people into a burning house. That's what he came back and said. He regretted it.
What was that, Chief Justice Marshall?
Correct.
Yeah, him too. Mm-hmm.
Thurgood Marshall.
Yep.
All of them, right? The NAACP, the HBCUs, all these Negro organizations, associations, and civic organizations, including the temples. Yes, including the temples, right? It has also established mechanisms to promote and protect these rights and to assist states in carrying out their responsibilities. It's a responsibility that's been placed on the states because the state has a responsibility to do what? Protect the people, its nationals. And this was Malcolm X's outcry. This is why he was saying the government is criminal because they're not adhering to our human rights. Instead, you want to give us civil rights. So we have injected ourselves into the civil rights movement to expand it into human rights. Right? The foundations of this body of law are the charter. So then he say that Chief Goldberg was crying about Jewish rights because the charter was being violated. Malcolm was on point with this. His only misconcept was that black stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you blame that on the temples because the temples could have easily approached the good brother, brought him into the temple, put him on game, and this whole thing would have been over. But no, under the temple, not in the temples, under the damn temples. So if you were to ask me, the biggest chunk in American jurisdiction was the Moorish Science Temple of America and its grand sheets. Since then, the United Nations has gradually expanded human rights laws to encompass specific standards for women, children. See, it's always the women. The women are always the ones that are under attack. And the children, persons with disabilities, minorities, and other vulnerable groups who now possess rights that protect them from discrimination that had long been common in many society. So how do you enforce these principles, these mechanisms? Well, you can't do it as a temple. You can't do it as a website, rvbaypublications.com and all that crap. You can't do it as a church, right? TD Jakes, Cleflo Dollar. You can't do it as a university. You got to do it as what? A state. You need 3 branches of government in order to be able to now enforce these mechanisms that were set forth by the United Nations. I had a fool from a representative of the Meximor Empire who was slandering Wazir Chung of Vita California. And I'm not having it. You're not, no, you're not doing that. So I went in on him so that he brought the heat over here to me. I'm like, good, you bring it over here, you leave that sister alone. And what he was trying to say is exactly why I started going over the charter. Does anyone in this discussion recall the reasons that I gave as to why we're going over the charter? Can anyone remember that? Please, someone tell me if you remember.
Because the women are not being protected.
Nope.
Because the charter is steeped in international law.
That's true, but that's not the reason why I started going over the charter. I started going over the charter because there's been a huge misconcept amongst our people that the United Nations is the devil that is ran by the Rockefellers and that their goal is to enslave all of humanity. That's the reason why I'm going over it, to prove that that's not true. So this Meximor Empire clown needs to come and watch these classes, because according to him and according to the Meximor Empire, the United Nations is owned and operated by, guess who? The Rockefellers. See the foolishness? Man, you might want to get out my face, bruh. I ain't the one. You're not going to be talking to any of our, especially not our female wazirs or any one of our females within this movement, or anyone else for that matter.
But he reveals himself, or you can tell those who don't read. You can tell those who go by what is said, by what they hear. Yeah.
Exactly. Their little emperor, I knew whatever his name is, he's the one with that crap, telling people that the United Nations is ran by the Rockefeller when it's not. It's not true.
Emperor Anu? What? Empire of
what was that?
Empire. A Meximor Empire? Yeah, I heard that.
Meximor Empire, yes, them clowns. They came after. That's the latest.
Who they be? I forgot the brother name, but they on Facebook. I think he just said
Islam.
Aren't they a shoot off of? They're either a shoot off of the Great Seal or something like that.
Islam, if I could chime in real quick.
Yes, please, brother Hakeem, please.
And kind of play devil's advocate a little bit again. But so from what I recall, it's been a few years. But a Meximor Empire, they've been around for a little while, quite a while.
25 years to be exact. 25 years.
And they've been, making steady progress in different areas economically. And assisting different Moors across the world, essentially, and mostly in Al Kebalon, as far as I'm aware. What one thing worth noting that I've noticed is that the gentleman who is the head of that government or entity, he made it clear a long time ago that it's not their intention to wait for Moors to catch up, basically, right? Or it's not their intention to slow down their progress to assist others, basically. So it's like, you guys got to catch up with us, basically. You get what I'm saying?
I do.
It's definitely not aligned with what AMPAG has been doing, because we've essentially been helping out Moors everywhere. Doesn't matter who you are, as long as you're committed to establishing a state government, we'll assist you, basically.
That's right.
So it's a different energy there. So I forgot what the point I was gonna make in terms of playing devil's advocate, but I would say regardless of the differences of opinion, the goal for us Moors should be unity. Because
That's
I can guarantee you whenever we decide to make a move in terms of going to the ICJ, every single one of the European nations that don't want us to take that seat and hold that pen, they are going to unite against us.
Mm-hmm.
So our goal should be making allies with each other. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's all I was going to say.
I appreciate that, Hakeem, and that's of course our goal. I made that clear on the last call. I called for unity amongst all the Moors. But the point that I'm making is that they came into Sister Chung's post in the comment section slandering her. That's not unity. Now, if you had came in a different way to discuss how we can make this thing work, then by all means we can do that for sure, all day, every day. But why was he slandering her? And slandering us, really. It's just slandering the movement is what he was doing. It's because they're trying to discredit us. Why are they trying to discredit us? Well, let me tell you why they're trying to discredit us. Knowledge is free, in all caps, at the WRC, whereas even they charge a hefty fee to be a part of their demonstration. You see? And we share the same ideology. We're not waiting for anyone to catch up to us. Or we're not waiting for anyone until we continue. We're going to continue going whether you come with us or not. However, we still have an open door policy to bring anyone, assist anyone of our Moors. You got to be a Moor, of course, Moroccan. And we will assist anyone for free to establish their government. So we're not going to sit around and wait on anyone. We're going to keep moving, and whoever wants to join. If not, we're going to keep going. It is what it is. We're not going to stop. And I could appreciate that philosophy. But what I don't appreciate is the slander, and then the slander being based in misconcepts and misinformation, telling me and telling us that the United Nations is established by the Rockefellers. Oh, you guys you're encumbering yourself. You're in pre-K. When you graduate, you guys can come and talk to us. This is the crap that he was trying to say, yo. Right? Now, I didn't come at him with fire and all negative or anything. I was really just using a whole lot of sarcasm, right? But I would rather you bring that heat over here to me. Leave Chung alone. Leave Oxidine alone. Any of our wazirs, me or more. These are females. You leave them alone. Leave the men alone too. You come talk to me. I'm the chairman. You come talk to me. I take the heat. Leave everyone else alone. You got something to say? Come talk to Abdul Smith Bey. That's my position. You don't come talking crap to our constituents. You got something to say? Bring it to me. The Facebook page is AMPAG Moxen, MAKHZEN. And if you don't know what that means, it means Moorish government, sir. You come talk to us. Come talk to me, and we'll settle the difference in whatever way possible, preferably in a diplomatic manner, right? Because I'm not going to get into no back and forth in a negative manner, of course not. But I'll take the heat nonetheless. But the point is, it's based on the misconcept that the Rockefellers run the United Nations, which is not true, right? And it's not based in enslaving all of humanity. This is ridiculous. We're going over human rights right now. This is the United Nations, right? So what are you talking about? Moving on, before I say something I might regret. Listen, I don't play no games like that. And these Moors gonna get to know me really good, really quickly. Class says the Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, UDHR, is a milestone document in the history of human rights. Drafted by representatives with different legal and cultural backgrounds from all regions of the world, the Declaration was proclaimed by the United Nations General Assembly in Paris on 10 December 1948 by General Assembly Resolution 217A-3 as a common standard of achievements for all peoples and all nations. It sets out for the first time fundamental human rights to be universally protected. Since its adoption in 1948, the UDHR has been translated into more than 500 languages, the most translated document in the world. It has inspired the constitutions of many newly independent states and many new democracies. The UDHR, together with the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and its two optional protocols on the complaints procedure and on the death penalty, and the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights and its optional protocol from the so-called International Bill of Human Rights.
Okay, I highlighted this for a reason. Since its adoption in 1948, the UDHR, right, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, has been translated into more than 500 languages, the most translated document in the world, and has inspired the constitutions of many newly independent states, which does not include the Moorish American states or the Black states or anything coming from the West, and many new democracies. You see, this is what they call the Rockefellers. Oh, okay. So make up your mind. Is the Rockefellers evil or are the Rockefellers righteous? Because if the charter was put together by the Rockefellers, well, then they did justice for the people, for the world.
And how do you verify that statement that it was?
Verify that.
No. I meant the one about it being set up by the Rockefellers.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm there with you. Please verify that. What's the reference point? Who is it? Jordan Maxwell? David Icke? Alex Jones? Is that your reference point? Because I know those names for a reason. Why do I know those names? Because once upon a time, that was my reference point. Man knows not by being told, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was a follower of those guys, and I thought the same thing, which is why, again, I'll repeat it again. This is why I'm going over the Charter and the United Nations to prove otherwise. Now, if you got some sort of material that can show that the Rockefellers were the ones who established it, please show it to me. And even then, you're only telling me that the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds are righteous, beautiful human beings. Because they actually helped, they assisted 80 territories to decolonize around planet Earth. This is ridiculous. We need to get out of fellowship and get into scholarship. Economic and cultural rights. Economic, social, and cultural rights. Go ahead, sister.
Economic, social, and cultural rights. The International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights entered into force in 1976. The human rights in the covenant seeks to promote and protect include the right to work in just and favorable conditions, the right to social protection, to an adequate standard of living, and to the highest attainable standards of physical and mental well-being, the right to education and the enjoyment of benefits of cultural freedom and scientific progress.
Okay. What rights? The right to work in just and favorable conditions, right? Labor laws. One of our Bilal Aziz associate, Sister Ashira Bey, right? That was one of her things. She put together a bill dealing with labor conditions on the job place as it relates to the rights of indigenous peoples and human rights. Right? That was her reference point. These things, sisters, and I'm calling on the sisters because you have, with the power of the pen, to make laws on behalf of the state. You've been put in power to do as such. So your reference points would come from these documents. In fact, instead of you writing it all, you can just pull up these specific legislative acts that came from the United Nations and convert it, right? Copy, paste, plug and play, and convert it to your internal Moroccan law or internal Moroccan legislation. That's the secret. So that you don't have to burn up any brain cells and have to think all this stuff up. No, you ain't got to do that. Go to the United Nations, pull up one of those documents, read over it, understand it, and then start copy and pasting away, plug and play, right? Make it germane to your state, make it germane to your nationals. Because a lot of these, if not most or all of these covenants, conventions, resolutions, etc., are written in a generic form. It's generalized. So then you take it and you focus it. So wherever it says indigenous peoples, that's a general term. You say the Moroccan nationals. You take off indigenous peoples and you put Moroccan nationals of AMPAG, for example. You put your state name in there as if it was your state who wrote it or you writing it for the state specifically, but you're just mirror imaging what was already written. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. These are some of the things you learn in the WRC for free, right? The right to social protection, to an adequate standard of living, and to the highest attainable standards of physical and mental well-being. But see, these principles, like the right to education and the enjoyment of benefits of cultural freedom and scientific progress, a Moorish American or African American or a Black man or Black woman, Black American, you don't just write it up as legislation and who you're going to hand it to, what, the United States? You're a subject, Moorish subject to be exact. What am I saying? You got to first establish the three branches of government, right? Because the laws get ratified through the legislative branch, passed over to the executive branch so that the head of state could then sign it into law. And then your judicial branch their job now is to interpret said law and enforce that law. You see how that works? It goes from the legislative branch to the executive branch, and it ends up in the judicial branch for them to enforce it. And that gives you the legal argument when dealing with the colonists, for example. So if you have so when the Moorish Americans say, well, I have the right to travel, well, what's your legal argument for that? You don't really have a legal argument because you don't have any laws that says such a thing. Your legal argument is based in your laws. So what am I saying? If a Moor says that I have the right to travel, your reference would be the laws that was passed through the legislative branch and the executive branch of your state. So you say, look at here, sir, this is our laws, and our law says that we have the right to travel. So you have no rights to infringe upon those rights. That's your legal argument. That's how that works. But what the Moorish Americans do is they don't have their own laws, so they're left with what? U.S. laws. So then they try to pull federal case laws from the 1800s, talking about freaking what do they call that? Carriages and all that, right? And then it's even worse, incompetent, because you're trying to invoke that particular law on a state level, but that's actually on the federal level. So those are two separate jurisdictions. I mean, it's been a hot mess with the Moorish American movement. A hot mess. They don't understand jurisdiction. They don't understand laws. And they damn sure don't understand politics and statehood. Civil and political rights, sister. Go ahead.
Civil and political rights. The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and its first optional protocol entered into force in 1976. The second optional protocol was adopted in 1989. The covenant deals with such rights as freedom of movement, equality before the law, the right to a fair trial and presumption of innocence, freedom of thought, conscience, and religion, freedom of opinion and expression, peaceful assembly, freedom of association, participation in public affairs and elections, and protection of minority rights. It prohibits arbitrary deprivation of life, torture, cruel or degrading treatment or punishment, slavery or forced labor, arbitrary arrest or detention, arbitrary interference with privacy, war propaganda, discrimination, and advocacy of racial or religious hatred.
Okay, so it says at the very top right, the covenant deals with such rights as freedom of movement. Okay, keep that in mind. Let me show y'all something. I'm gonna show you better than I could tell you. What does this say? How did I read? No, right here it was highlighted. It says AMPAG bills. Now let me show you a bill. Where is it? There it is. Okay, so what I just mentioned earlier, I just told you about establishing your legal argument. Let me show y'all something, and this is a rough draft, which it has been passed. So I'm just showing you the rough draft, not the final version. So we just read freedom of movement, right? Okay, keep that in mind. There's my 1 second. Just got to pull up this little thing. Okay, let me just close it here. All right, cool. Do that. Yes. Okay. This is one of our bills. What does it say? I knew this was going to pop up. What does it say?
Freedom of Movement, Travel, and Commute Act.
You see? So we have a legal argument for such a law, right? Whereas Series 0004, Bill number 823.004, recognizes the receiving state of Alodia Morris Palladium, Ante, Georgia, and its protected former Morris subjects and Moroccan nationals the human right and freedom of movement, travel, or commute, etc., across the Empire of Morocco, and particularly within the Utipasidatis jurisdiction of the state of Alodia Morris Palladium, Ante, Georgia. In dealing with the foreign United States of America, the foreign United States Intergovernmental Organization, the Charter Colony State of Georgia, any other foreign chartered states, municipalities, organs, and agents, or other foreign states throughout the Empire of Morocco shall adhere to this legislative act and enact policies and procedures for all law enforcement agents, sheriffs, deputies, highway patrol, state troopers, and police officers to follow and implement when encountering a Moroccan national or government official under protections by the receiving state of Alodia Morris Palladium, Ante, Georgia. That's the preamble. This is how you move, Moors. You don't pull up their statutes. You pull out your statutes, your legislations, your laws. And that's what establishes your legal argument to bring to court. And furthermore, what Noble Jew Ali said, stay out of their courts. Why? Because they're supposed to appear in what court? What court are they supposed to appear in, Moors?
House court.
Consular court.
Also, yeah.
Which is whose court?
Moroccan
court.
Our court.
Mm-hmm.
Our courts. Whereas all doctrines, policies, and practices based on or advocating superiority of peoples or individuals based on national origin or racial, religious, ethnic, or cultural differences are racist, scientifically false, legally invalid, morally condemnable, and socially unjust, and further recognizing that no Moorish national shall be subject to arbitrary interference with their privacy, family, home, or correspondence, nor attacks upon his honor and reputation, as all nationals of AMPAG are endowed with the right to protections under the Constitution and this legislative act against such interference or attacks, Moors. This is how we're supposed to move. So when Chief Justice Jay Bay asked the Moors in, I think, class 120, I think it was, he asked the Moorish Americans, where is your body of laws to protect your people? It don't exist. This is what he's referring to. This is a body of law. This is what gives you the legal argument to go in any court venue and stand your square. This is how you stand your square. You don't stand your square on their legislative acts, and you certainly don't stand your square on some writ or affidavit that you sent to 7 different locations and blah, blah, blah. Knowledge is free at the WRC. If you guys are tired of the BS, come join us. That's an example of, that was just a quick glimpse as to the proper procedure of law, right? Statehood, right? But you need 3 branches of government to do this. So that particular law that I just read off was accepted and ratified by the legislative branch, the Dalil Aziz, or the Matriarchal Council. It was passed to me, the head of state. I signed it into law, and now our Chief Judge, Isaac L. Mahdi Bey, and Akil Bey, the Assistant Consular Court Judge, they interpret and enforce that law. So if the United States try to infringe upon our rights, oh, and by the way, let me go back to it. Let me show you all something else. This is what we talk about when you're and by the way, Brother Akeem, we got to put this on the website. I forgot to send this to you. Where is it? Okay, so it says running throughout the primary right here too. Okay, so it says okay, the Foreign United States Intergovernmental Organization, the Chartered Colony, State of Georgia, any other foreign chartered states, municipalities, organs, and agents, or other foreign states throughout the Empire of Morocco shall adhere, okay, right here, shall adhere to this legislative act and enact policies and procedures for all law enforcement agents, sheriffs, deputies, highway patrols, state troopers, and police officers to follow and implement when encountering a Moroccan national or government official under protections by the receiving state of Alodia Morris Parade in Ante, Georgia. So the key thing here is that we're telling the United States that they must implement, right, policies, laws, procedures, whatever you want to call it, to tell these fools, who are the fools? The sheriffs, deputies, highway patrols, state troopers, policy enforcers, police enforcers, whatever you want to call them. See, that law has to come down from the governor as a policy or a legislative act to tell their minions, okay, stand down, don't fool with these people. We got to tell them what to do. How do you get your children to wash the dishes? You got to tell them what to do. But what? Okay. In the household, who represents the legislative branch? Can somebody tell me?
Mother.
The mother.
The rules that the children must follow, right? So she posts on the wall on a board or something, right? At such and such time, wash the dishes, clean your clothes, clean your room, so on and so forth, right? These are laws. The government starts at home and then expands to society, right? Who's the 3 branches of government? The mother is the legislative branch, the father is the executive branch, and grandma might be the judicial branch. Because a lot of times the parents, they always got to consult who? Grandmama, right? Right.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
They're like children. That's the whole point. We are supposed to tell them what to do by way of legislation. This is why I'm telling y'all, in our subjugated status, the IRS is the boogeyman. But when we come back into full powers in propria persona sui juris, that's what that really means. The same liability that we were dealing with the IRS now becomes an asset to us. Why? Because now we write legislative acts to the federal government to pass down to the IRS to let them know, okay, you don't pull taxes out of Moroccan nationals' checks. You may continue to do so with the Americans and the Moorish subjects. However, the revenues that are generated from the collection of these taxes must go where? To the Moorish treasury. You see, you don't tell them, you put it in writing by way of legislation, i.e., the power of the pen. Islam. Moving on. Hope I made that point clear, and I hope I motivated some of you to say, oh, damn, this is some stuff I ain't ever seen before. Let's get with gas. You might want to do so because remember, knowledge is free at the WRC, Human Rights Convention System. Continue.
Human Rights Conventions, a series of international human rights treaties and other instruments adopted since 1945, have expanded the body of international human rights laws. They include the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, 1948.
Mm-hmm.
The International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, 1965. The Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, 1979. The Convention on the Rights of the Child, 1989. And the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, 2006, among others.
Now, isn't the Rockefellers so beautiful? Aren't they angels? Look at what they have put together. They have put together a series of international human rights treaties and other instruments adopted since 1945. This is what the Rockefellers have done for the people. So how evil are the Rockefellers? Considering the foolish misconcept that they are supposed to put it together. Sarcasm. Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. 1948. Malcolm X said what he had to say in 1964. He was talking about the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. He just didn't speak. He just didn't speak that title out loud, but that's what he was referring to. Go ahead, Brother Hakeem.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I'm glad that you specifically pointed out the word sarcasm because as you were saying those things, I was thinking, man, somebody could really do a soundbite of that and make it seem like you're supporting the Rockefeller. So I'm glad you said that.
It's not more. I thought about that as well. That's why I said it.
Point of interest.
Yes, sir.
Going back to the document you just showed us on the laws that you made to the right to travel and movement, that's a square that you stand on in several venues. One of the main ones that I see the importance of that is that when you get to the ICJ, International Court of Justice, your Constitution is your Exhibit A of your right to self-determination being impeded upon. That is an Exhibit A.
Correct.
I yield.
Islam. The Constitution is your Exhibit A. And you, along with your Declaration of Independence.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And your renunciation and for affirmation, statehood.
All that. Mm-hmm. Well, it's 7 exhibits, what we call the Circle 7. It even includes your public inauguration, your flag, your seal, all the things that represent you as a sovereign and independent state. Those are all your exhibits. Right. But now when we talk about
that ties into tying them into, that's an act of genocide, impeding your right to self-determination, even though it's not bloody, it's still an act of genocide and colonization. Any act of colonization is considered genocide.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be, blood doesn't have to be drawn. Denationalization is genocide.
Hey, so since we're on this subject, I got a quick question, right? And I've been talking about this to like the officials in our state, and we was like trying to see like any act we would like label this like an act of aggression towards like the colonists, and any act of aggression is, we can kind of make some type of penalty towards those acts to kind of keep them in line as well. And with that, I yield.
Well, no doubt. Who was speaking?
Ty Bay from Al Carolina.
Islam. So, this is the act about the Cirrus. My favorite article. Let's highlight it. Let's talk about it real quick. So we're gonna move from the human rights. That human rights article is not too lengthy, but we're trying to cover a lot of things. So you guys can always go back to the United Nations website and finish that read. If you would like on your own time, which I suggest you do, but we covered enough of it. Let's move on to something other points of interest, considering the time that we have. But real quick, based on what the brother said, Article 102. You want to read that for me, Sarah Makara, please?
Article 102. Every confiscation, fine, or penalty must be imposed on foreigners by consular jurisdiction and on Moorish subjects by Sharifian jurisdiction.
Every confiscation, fine, or penalty must be imposed on foreigners, Americans, Germans, British, French, right? Netherlands, all of them, right? By who? Consular jurisdiction. And on Black people, Moorish Americans, African Americans, Negroes, Coloreds, etc., which are the Moorish subjects by Sharifian jurisdiction. So consular jurisdiction, Sharifian jurisdiction, synonymous. Saying that the competent Moroccan consular court has authority to impose confiscation, fines, or penalties on anyone in Morocco.
On anyone in Morocco. That's right.
Right? For violating what? International law and our internal Moroccan laws. Period. That's the reference point. Article 102 of the Act of Algeciras. It's imperative for you all, if you don't even want to study anything else, study the Act of Algeciras.
Yeah.
That's the most powerful treaty on planet Earth, y'all. Because what do you see here? Just on this page, Moorish, Moorish Treasury, Moorish Customs, Moorish subjects. You see Moorish all over this document, Moors, with us being what? The competent authority over all other states that are signatories.
It overrules all treaties, conventions, and declarations.
Okay. Glad you mentioned
superior
that.
To anything else that's been written.
Glad you mentioned that. You, brother, who just said that, read Article 123 for me, please.
I'd be happy to. 123. And last, all treaties, conventions, and arrangements of the signatory powers with Morocco remain in force. It is understood, however, that in case of conflict between their provisions and those of the present General Act, the stipulations of the latter shall prevail.
Period. That means that even the United Nations Charter is under the authority of the Act of Algeciras. You dig?
You understand?
And why is it that we're not studying the Act of Algeciras? I don't know. It's so powerful, as I've pointed out before, that when you look at the signatory powers, Germany signed, Austria-Hungary signed, Belgium signed, Spain signed, the United States signed, France signed, Great Britain signed, Italy signed, but guess who didn't sign? Morocco, no signature, empty, nothing. Netherlands signed, Portugal, Russia, Sweden, everybody signed it. So the additional protocols, right, is because all these European colonists got with the Pope to get with the Sultan, right, to find out what's up. Is this thing gonna go forward? Or is he gonna sign? And the Sultan was like, yeah, good. If everyone else signed, okay, cool. So then they came back. The Pope, what Pope? Well, what do they refer him to? Well, how do they refer to him? His Catholic Majesty, right? Came back and told the all the other signatory powers that it's all good, we good to go. So they signed it again, two signature lines. Germany signed, Austria-Hungary, Belgium signed, Spain signed, United States signed, France signed, Great Britain, Italy, Morocco still didn't sign again. And it's still in full force. Now you understand why we're bringing back the Sultan and the Empire with the Empire? The Sultan is the ultimate chess move in this chess matchup. Too much power. All the power that we need. Islam? All right. Go. Okay, so now let's switch gears real quick. And let's look at this this is one of the documents that I was talking about that I pulled up looking for that 1778 correspondence with Great Britain and John Adams of the United States. I couldn't find it, but I ended up coming across this. And what stood out to me, and I didn't get a chance to read it before the class, but we're going to go over it nonetheless. America and the Moors, early recognition. Imagine that. This is how we can prove that there's two different parties. One is the Moors. The other one is the Americans, which is why we cannot be both. We can't be Moors and Americans, i.e. Moorish Americans. The term Moorish American is true and falsehood strangely mixed all in it of itself. You can't be both parties. So this is the Act of Algeciras, or the Treaty of Peace and Friendship here, right? That's been scanned, but obviously we have the actual text at the bottom. Morocco's early recognition of American independence in 1778. Morocco early diplomatic correspondence and exchange of recognition with the United States of America. Morocco, the first nation to recognize the independence of the United States of America. Right? Let's see. I don't know if I need to. Can you guys see this pretty well, or do I need to?
I can see it fine. I don't know about anybody else, but I can.
Okay. You want to read, Sister Omar? You can start. Morocco, the first nation to recognize.
Okay, Morocco, the first nation to recognize the independence of the United States of America. Morocco was the first country to recognize the United States independence on December 20th, 1777, only a year and a half after the United States Declaration of Independence. Morocco recognized the United States independence for trade, protection, and common interest. The Moroccan-American Treaty of Friendship began with the Sultan Sidi Mohammed bin Abdullah announced his desire for friendship with the United States in 1777, and Moroccan ports were open to American ships the same year. The Sultan was the most progressive of the Barbary leaders who ruled Morocco from 1757 to 1790. Morocco was the first country to recognize the United States in 1777. Negotiations for a formal treaty began in 1783. In 1785, the United States Congress authorized negotiations for a treaty with Morocco.
Hold right there, real quick. Who authorized the negotiation? The U.S. Congress, right?
U.S. Congress.
What does the U.S. Congress represent to the three branches of the United States?
Legislative.
There you go. Legislative branch. You need three branches of government to operate properly in statehood and gain your independence. So this is exactly what they did. All right, just wanted to point that out. Continue, sister. The Sultan.
The Sultan made several overtures, and John Adams, John Jay, and Benjamin Franklin urged the United States to negotiate a treaty. The Moroccan-American Treaty of Peace and Friendship, also known as the Treaty of Marrakesh, was signed in 1786. The treaty established diplomatic and commercial relations between the United States and Morocco. The treaty was signed in Europe by American diplomats John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. It was ratified by the Confederation Congress in July 1787. The treaty established that commerce with the United States would be on the same footing as commerce with Spain. Citizens of the United States would be respected and esteemed. citizens of the United States would have full liberty to pass and repass Morocco and its seaports without interruption.
Quick interpretation. The first bullet point, commerce with the United States would be on the same footing as commerce with Spain. That's regarding, or it's referring to the most nation clause that was in the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. All right, continue, sister.
The treaty remains the longest unbroken relationship in United States history. Full diplomatic relations began in 1905. Morocco is America's oldest ally in the Arab world, dating back to 1790.
Thought two things. The part where it says full diplomatic relations began in 1905 is referring to what?
Before the Act of Algiers. Or
you go. There you go. Full diplomatic relations began in 1905, which deals with the Act of Algeciras. And this word right here.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Propaganda and a misconcept. And as you continue reading, you'll find out how and why. Continue, sister.
Okay. We'll start from Morocco is America's oldest ally in the Arab world, dating back to 1790. Morocco has supported the United States more than any other Arab country. The majority of Moroccans are pro-American.
Okay, so that is showing you two different parties, the Moroccans and the Americans. Therefore, yet again, Moors. We can't be Moorish and Americans. You must choose between the two. Either you're going to be an American or you're going to be a Moroccan. Now, you currently your political status is American, but that's because of the Naturalization Act, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. And then add insult to injury, the Moorish American Society of Philadelphia took part in the speedy and thorough Americanization of the former Moors who were once Moroccans but became Americans. And the Moors, the Moorish Americans, and the Moorish Science Temples and the Moorish American Society of Philadelphia are jumping in joy behind Resolution 75. The incompetence is real. Continue, sister.
Personal local memory on the commercial relation between Moxagan and the United States of America. Moxagan, named actually El Jadida, is the birthplace of the author of this article, said El Mansour Shakawi, received one of the United States of America's official trading posts and consular attaché commercial. Among the Moroccans hired by the American official to serve as intermediary with the local population of Moxagan named Olid Saudade was close friend on my father, Moulay Ahmed Cherkoi, and his son was adopted by my father. Later on, Oled Saudade Jr. immigrated to America and became police officer in New York.
Imagine that. Now, when you talk about Moulay, that was a Sultan Moulay had and you're gonna see some of that in this read. But I remind you all, we talked about it already. The American legation building that's in Tangiers was donated to the United States of America. It was an ancient Moorish building, and it was donated to the United States of America by Sultan Moulay, just for clarity and interpretation. All right, continue.
If we trace the date when Morocco contacted in Europe Franklin, we see that Morocco is the earliest recognition of American independence in 1778 to add a cheerful cherry, which is the first real estate bought by the United States government out of the United States continental territory, was a house in Tangier, and that served as the United States legation in Morocco. This house is still owned by the U.S. government and was transformed in House of America, Dar America Museum, while the U.S. Embassy is in Rabat and the General Consulate in Casablanca with Play Again Sam, Tune in the Ear and Spirit.
All right, hold that thought right there real quick. First and foremost, let's bring clarity to this propaganda and misconcept. They don't own a daggone thing. They hold it. They don't own it. Now, let's come over here. Go to Google. If I can show it to you all again in case you forgot. Or those who may not have seen it, who may be new on the call. American legation. You see it here? It's not pulling it up. Let me see. Trying to pull it up. Okay, there we go. That's the house. That's the building that was donated to the United States. Can y'all see it clearly?
Yes.
That was a
Yes.
Yes.
that was a Moorish mansion that was donated to the United States. Let's go into Wikipedia real quick. We got a better view of it. That's it right there.
Point
You
of
see it?
interest.
Yes, sir.
What year was that? That it was donated?
Established on May 17, 1821, following decades of cordial relations between the U.S. and Morocco. Sultan Mohammed bin Abdullah had issued a proclamation recognizing U.S. independence from Great Britain. Right?
Okay. I just asked because researching Moorish flags, they showed that it was a six-pointed Moorish flag flying over at that building at that time. So I was just trying to get the date and the correlations so I can go back and do a little bit more digging. Thank you.
No worries. So that's the building, right? Location, Tangier, Morocco. Architectural style, Moorish architecture.
Yeah, you see that all over the world.
You see it all over the world.
All
right?
those old movies.
And so you see where so that's see, you use discernment, because just a minute ago, what did they say? Arab world.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if it's the Arab world, then why are they giving them a Moorish building? Because it's actually a Moorish world, not the Arab world. Oh man, these people are something else. All right, sister, continue.
Even when they tell the truth, they're lying. Okay.
When they tell the truth, and sometimes when they're lying, they're telling the truth.
The truth, yeah.
Lies and falsehood is strangely mixed. Go ahead.
Another factor of reapproachment is that Roosevelt met with the king while the French protectorate was at its height of control in Morocco.
Okay, see, another misconception. Because when the French protectorate was at its height in Morocco, he wasn't the king. He was still the sultan. He didn't become the king until 1956 to gain independence from the French protectorate.
That's right.
You see? Go ahead, sister.
That's how the French protectorate came into existence.
No, that's how the French protectorate came to an end. When he declared his independence.
Oh, that's right. That's right. When he declared his independence and became king. That's right.
Exactly.
During this meeting, Roosevelt promised that Morocco will be independent following the defeat of Hitler, and Moroccan will be participating in this battle as they did in the First World War. My grandfather was in the First World War, and my uncles were in the Second World War.
And this is the treaty in Arabic, right? And then, so what does it say up here?
Treaty of Peace and Friendship between America and the Moors.
Yeah, they want to say the Arab world. You see the BS? So you have to learn you got to know how to read with discernment. And then, so now what else does it go on to say? Moorish agreement made with the USA government, huh? Continue.
Treaty of Peace and Friendship with additional article, also ship signals agreement. The treaty was sealed at Morocco with the seal of the Emperor of Morocco, June 23rd, 1786, 25 Shaban, AH 1200, and delivered to Thomas Barclay, American agent, June 28, 1786, 1 Ramadan, AH 200.
Okay, so who was Thomas Barclay? What type of an agent he was?
Plenipotentiary?
No. American agent, right?
Canadian, yeah.
American agent. So you got the Moorish agreement by the Moors with the United States of America, and who's representing the United States of America as an American? Thomas Barclay. Again, we cannot be both parties. We can't be the Moors and the Americans. Therefore, we are not Moorish Americans. See, every time I get a chance to point that out, I'm never going to stop. So if y'all get tired of it, sorry, we're going to be redundant with this until the Moors start to course correct to recognize and say, oh, damn. These reference points are kind of strong. Maybe we need to rethink this. Yes, I think you might want to do so, Moors. And we're here for you. We're going to keep on beating this into your head until you finally get it. And that's what it's going to take, because you guys are hard heads with stiff necks who won't do nothing until the point of a sword. Continue, sister.
The additional article was signed and sealed at Morocco on behalf of Morocco, July 15th, 1786, 18 Ramadan, AH 1200. Original in Arabic. The ship signals agreement was signed at Morocco, July 6, 1786, 9 Ramadan, AH 1200. Original in English. Certified English translations of the treaty and of additional article were incorporated in a document signed and sealed by the ministers plenipotentiary of the United States, Thomas Jefferson at Paris, January 1st, 1787, and John Adams at London, January 25th, 1787. Treaty and additional article ratified by the United States, July 18th, 1787. As to the ratification, generally see the notes. Treaty and additional article proclaimed July 17th, 1787. Ship signals agreement not specifically included in the ratification and not proclaimed, but copies ordered by Congress July 23rd, 1787 to be
That's my birthday, July 23rd.
to be sent to the executive of the states, secret journals of Congress. Chapter 4, 869. But see the notes as to this reference. Certified translation of the treaty and of the additional article with approval by Jefferson and Adams. Why would that be under the secret journals?
Exactly. Thank you for that recognizing that BS right there, right? Okay, so this right here is the preamble, and then it goes into the actual treaty, right? So we already know the treaty, but real quick, let's go to article, I think it's 24 or 22. Because remember, up here, it said, where was it? About here you go. The first bullet, commerce with the United States will be on the same footing as commerce with Spain. So you'll find how many articles is it? 25. You see? So it is 24. Here it is. If any difference shall arise by either party infringing on any of the articles of this treaty, peace and harmony shall remain, notwithstanding, in the fullest force until a friendly application shall be made for an arrangement. And until that application shall be rejected, no appeal shall be made to arms. And if a war shall break out between the parties, 9 months shall be granted to all subjects of both parties to dispose of their effects and retire with their property. And it is further declared that whatever indulgences in trade or otherwise shall be granted to any of the Christian powers, the citizens of the United States shall be equally entitled to them. That's the most favored nation clause. And you'll see the United States invoking it in the France, the France versus United States case, right? Yep. So this one is missing an article for whatever reason. All right. So this is the French, or not the French, the Arabic version of it. And then it goes into the international agreements of the United States of America, right? This is the Treaty of Tripoli. We're not going to read through that. There was something else that I wanted to point out to you all. I wasn't able to underline it. Maybe it's not even here. It's the next document that I'm about to pull up. Yeah, this is another treaty. So it's just invoked. Now it's just talking about treaty. So we already went through the meat of the read, but this is the other thing that I wanted you all to take a look to see here. Read that for me, please.
Many of you never known the relationship with the Moorish Empire. Schools and Islamic movements have kept this a secret. Office of the Historian, United States Department of State.
Many of you never known the relationship between the Moorish Empire, relationship with the Moorish Empire. The schools and Islamic movements have kept this a secret.
That's like saying what the Moorish Americans kept it a secret.
Well, not really. The Moorish Americans has been put in secret, or at least the people have been, by the Grand Sheiks, right? What time is it? 9:25. We got a little time. Here's another document. I didn't get a chance to read over it. And it's a pretty lengthy read, but we're probably not gonna get to read the whole thing. But it also has very, very fascinating information, such as like the last one we just read, right? Who would have thought that those the Arabs came to New York to be police officers, right? So on here it says, on December 1st, 1789, George Washington sat down to write a letter to an old friend of his country. Ironically, however, the letter receipt was someone that Washington had never met. Oh, and by the way, let's look at the reference. MountVernon.org, George Washington's Mount Vernon, right? And when I was looking up that document, what stood out was obviously, this word right here, Morocco. So I pulled it up to determine or to read it and see what it was. But like I told y'all, I got caught up with that meeting, and other things took place after that. I wasn't able to really dig into this, but we're gonna just look at it real quick. All right. So let me just read the first paragraph, and then you'll take over, Sister Makara. On December 1st, 1789, George Washington sat down to write a letter to an old friend of his country. Ironically, however, the letter recipient was someone that Washington had never met. Just over 7 months earlier, Washington had been inaugurated the first president of the United States. What was that? Zap him, Hakeem. And had set up his office in the country's temporary capital of New York City. Go ahead, sister. In the intervening months.
In the intervening months, he had begun putting together his cabinet, gotten Mrs. Washington and the 2 grandchildren they were raising settled in their new house, organized a scheme for his official entertaining, survived a near-fatal illness, and taking a 1-month tour of the New England states. Now, as he started the letter, he began with a salutation. Great and magnanimous friend. The recipient of the letter he wrote that day was Muhammad ibn Abdullah, the Emperor of Morocco.
Hold on.
Did you say hold on?
Yeah, I told you hold on. This is the letter from George Washington to Sidi Muhammad, 1 December 1799. Since the date of the letter which the late Congress by their president addressed to your Imperial Majesty, the United States of America, have thought proper to change their government and to institute a new one agreeable to the Constitution, of which I have the honor of herewith enclosing a copy. What does he mean by that? Can anyone tell me?
He's ratifying his Constitution.
You're close, but that's not the correct.
They're making a new government. They don't like the current government.
What was that?
They're making a new government.
Yes, that's
not
true.
Content with the current one.
That's correct.
Putting them on orders.
The specific question is, when he says that he enclosed a copy and sent it to the emperor, what is he really telling? What is he really saying?
That he's subordinate.
He's depositing his Constitution.
There you go. There you go. He's depositing the Constitution with the Sultan at the diplomatic body. The diplomatic body became the what? What did the diplomatic body become in 1920?
United Nations.
The League of Nations. Correct, brother. And then what did the League of Nations be turned into?
The UN.
The United Nations. And in order for us to have full powers as founding in due form, what do we have to do with our Constitution at the United Nations?
You got to deposit it. After
You
it's
see what
been
I'm saying?
ratified.
You got to deposit it. So he followed the instructions back in 1789, right? Or prior, I think 1789, right? So today, 2023, we got to do the same thing. And furthermore, why? Okay, show you why. Because what Article 22 says. Sister Makara, please read Article 22. Right here. If an American citizen.
I don't see it.
Right here. You know, right here. I highlighted 22.
But
right here.
You got the letter showing.
I'm looking at my phone. It's got. Is everybody else seeing the letter?
I'm seeing Article 22 right now.
I read it. I see Article 22.
Okay, wait a minute. Okay, now I see it. Okay. If an American citizen shall die in our country and no will shall appear, the council shall take possession of his effects. And if there shall be no council, the effects shall be deposited in the hands of some person worthy of trust until the party shall appear who has a right to demand them. But if the heir to the person deceased be present, the property shall be delivered to him without interruption. And if a will shall appear, the property shall descend agreeable to that will as soon as the council shall declare the validity thereof.
Okay, what I want y'all to look at?
Shall be deposited in the person.
That's the state.
That's the state.
Great try. Wrong answer. The state is in here under a different term. It's not state. What is a state in international law?
A person.
There you go. Right? What is the will?
Constitution.
Right. Then it goes on to say, the effect shall be deposited in the hands of a person worthy of trust. In today's society, who's worthy of trust?
Your state.
No.
The trustees.
The key word is this right here, y'all.
Person.
No. Think about it. The key word is deposited.
The United Nations.
There you go. The United Nations.
Effective shall be deposited in the hand.
The person worthy of trust is the United Nations.
The person is the United Nations is an organization, right?
Right.
An international organization. The person is also the state. The will is the Constitution.
Man, it's cold-blooded, man.
So George Washington had to deposit his will, his Constitution, with the Sultan. Today, because of the fact that we fell, right? We died on paper, right? The successors, which is us, have to put together a will, right? To deposit it in the hands of a person worthy of trust, the United Nations, right? In order for us to get our estate back, our trust back. Everything, all this stuff about trust and Noble Ali had the trust and blah, 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 that's all misconcepts. The trust is the empire. You needed a will deposited with the United States, and who has to who must verify the will, right?
Council.
Which is the Constitution. Who?
Also.
The consul. Who's the consul?
Council court.
Who represents the consular court?
Hopkins.
The chief judge.
That's right. Yeah.
Like you said, brother, this is cold.
Cold-blooded.
Cold-blooded. The game is gold. It's cold.
Yeah.
And the game is to be told, not to be sold.
Islam.
Islamism.
And you can't take it literally because that's where the codes
And the cold blooded come in because they write with codes.
That's right.
Right. So then he goes to say, okay, so back to this thing. What does it say? So he said that it started off a great and magnanimous friend, right? But then over here, so he deposited his constitution with the Sultan by enclosing a copy and sending it to him. Then it says the time necessarily employed in this arduous task, which what we're dealing with right now is an arduous task. So it was an arduous task for him back in the 1700s. It's an arduous task for us in 2023 to decolonize. It was an arduous task for them to gain their independence from Great Britain. It's an arduous task for us to gain our independence from who? The colonists. So like Hakeem Bey told us in the Moorish paradigm that we needed 3 branches of government, and they're going to have to recognize it because back in 1700 we recognized them. It's their turn now to recognize us. This is what Hakeem Bey told us in the Moorish paradigm. Go back and watch it. Right? But who joined everybody else? All these weirdos have totally ignored what Hakeem Bey had to say. Because in all actuality, they should be running to the WRC, because if they want to stand on what the VHS scholars had to say, well, then look at what Hakeem Bey had to say as an old school VHS scholar. He said that we needed to do what we're doing today. You see the BS? We're doing exactly what he said that we needed to do, right? So then he called them his magnanimity of your conduct toward them afforded reason. But then look at what he said down here real quick. Right here. We greatly regret that the hostile disposition of those regencies towards this nation who have never injured them is not to be removed. What is he saying there, y'all? Can y'all take a quick guess on that?
The Moors are not to be removed from the land.
Yes, but give me the full interpretation. We greatly regret that the hostile disposition of those regencies towards this nation who have never injured them is not to be removed, meaning that the Moors have been attacking these people. You see? The Moors was going at the colonists. The Americans, let's say.
So when they disguise it when they say the Indians were always attacking them.
There you go. But remember, they have misnomer the Indians in the 1600s the Moors in the 1600s as Indians. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
In the 1600s, that was before this, about 100 years before this. This stuff is, and I mean, I'm all over the place right now because there's so much information, y'all. So bear with me. I'm sorry. I'm just clicking away, trying to bring you guys around to trying to get the things here, that we need to understand so that we can know that I'm just simply trying to do the best that I can and show you all that the things that we're doing is based in the proper concept versus what was being done in the old paradigm, which was all misconcepts. Okay. All right.
Can we
Take your time, brother. Take your time.
Can we get some of these articles? Where do we find them?
Oh, good question. Well, I found them by accident.
If you look at up on top of his screen, it'll tell you the website right there, mountvernon.org.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take a picture. Thanks.
Yeah, screenshot it. It's but it's specifically mountvernon.org/library/digital history/digital. So you're gonna have to type all that in. So you might want to either write it down or screenshot it. I'm not sure what else. I'm not Hakeem Bey.
Probably could go to the
I took
site,
a picture.
and type in
Well, if you take a
Morocco,
picture, you can always Google.
I'll take a picture and then
search it.
Yeah, you can always
I can find it. Thank you.
How you throw me into that though?
Because you're the genius. you're technologically inclined. I'm the incompetent one when it comes to technology, brother. I swear I can't do it. I mean, I guess I could if I put my mind to it, but I have no interest in it, so I guess that's why I'm not doing it.
Islam, I got you.
So then he goes on to say, in the intervening months, he had begun putting together his cabinet, gotten his, well, okay, so we already read that. And then it goes down, okay, so Sidi Muhammad learned about the American colonies' struggle for independence through the French consul. And this is how I found this, because I was looking for that document with this French consul. Let me see. So here's what I'll do for y'all. I'm gonna right click because I think it's already on my cursor. If I right click and paste, you see all this right here. ATNA, the Ouderberg, Kale of the Commissioner, 14 April 1778, right? So y'all can take a screenshot of this as well. And this is where I found both these articles that I'm going over. This one here and this one here was found on this list. So I clicked on all these looking for this document and I didn't find it, but I found those things. But as you see, when you scroll, you see Morocco, George Washington, Mount Vernon, Adams Papers, Digital Edition, Massachusetts Historical, the ATN, I can't pronounce that, the Ouderberg, Kale, to the American Commissioners, 14 April 1778, right? Morocco, George Washington's Mount Vernon, History of the U.S. and Morocco, U.S. Embassy and Consulates in Morocco, Kingdom of Morocco, Moroccan-American Agreement, longtime friends, early U.S.-Moroccan relations. So you guys can just scroll through this and click away and just start looking for stuff, right? That's how I found these two documents. Just by simply clicking this here. Right click, because see what I did was I was over here. If I did this here, this is how I found some of that stuff on this side here as well. Let me center the page. And you'll see that there's so many different reference points to look through. Well, at least 3 of them. So there was a letter to John Jay to the American Commissioner. You can click on these things. So the National Archive is a great place to start doing some research as well. You'll find a lot of things with Morocco. In many cases, you just need to type in the search bar, just type in Empire of Morocco in the United States and that type of thing. Just kind of like use your imagination to just start just doing some investigation, just looking around. And this is basically how I found these documents. Okay. So getting back to this, he said, Sidi Muhammad learned about the American colonies' struggle for independence through the French consul assigned to Morocco and via European newspapers. So, okay, let me continue reading. He began reaching out to the Americans on December 20th, 1777, by including them on a list of countries who would be welcomed in Moroccan ports in an effort to assist the process of opening diplomatic relations with the new country. Several months later, I thought somebody said something. Several months later, the Moroccan emperor appointed a French merchant, Etienne Kale, which is that same name that I typed in here, Etienne the Ouderberg Kale, right? Because what happened was they didn't have any representation. So the emperor, okay, let's continue reading, and you'll see, to serve as a consul for unrepresented nations, right, plural, including the new United States at his core, right? Kale got to work quickly, writing on April 14, 1778 to Benjamin Franklin, the American minister to France, right? American, Benjamin Franklin was an American. We are the Moroccans. Upon receiving the letter, Franklin sought the advice of French officials who suggested that it was not safe to have any correspondence with him. Kale also tried to get through to the Americans via their minister in Madrid, John Jay, who was a judge who acted as a diplomat on behalf of the United States to do negotiations for the United States, right? That's why he's hailed as one of the greatest diplomats in the United States, right? The American response must have disappointing, okay? Years after Sidi Muhammad had first offered to open his ports to American shipping, President of the Continental Congress, Samuel Huntington, right? Who is Samuel Huntington? What is his national identity?
Is he American?
Well, that's his, yeah, right, his nationality. But what I mean is, okay, let's use the connotative terms. What's his color?
He's probably black.
8 black presidents before George Washington, wasn't there?
Was he from Sweden?
Yeah, yeah.
Under the Continental Congress.
I thought it was 9, but okay.
It was the Continental Congress and it became the United States. This is why George Washington in his letter was saying that he, you know what I mean? Let's go back real quick. When he said, thought proper, where is it at? Congress, address to your Imperial Majesty, the United States of America, have thought proper to change their government and to institute a new one agreeable to the Constitution. So they went from the Continental Congress to the United States.
Mm.
And that's what this is saying here, right? Wrote to a friend to say that he had just received a letter on behalf of the emperor inviting these United States to trade in his ports. It was another 3 months in December 1780 before the president of Congress finally responded to the emperor, assuring him of congressional desire to cultivate a sincere and firm peace and friendship with your majesty and to make it lasting to all, excuse me, posterity, right? Future generations. Relations continue. Go ahead.
And is this about the time frame when Great Britain was saying y'all are not Americans and this?
No, there was not recognizing them.
That's right.
Right. So the United States, the George Washington and them, the diplomats of the United States, was seeking recognition from Great Britain through a treaty and to be recognized as Americans. And Great Britain was like, no, you guys are British subjects and you're treasonous. So the only one who would, and no other country would. So the only one who did was Sidi Muhammad. Right. Relations continued at a slow pace, which again, the courts, the Sultan and the courts of Morocco confirmed the recognition of the United States of America as Americans. We are not Americans. We're not the true Americans. We're no types of Americans other than under a subjugated status. Right. The speedy and thorough Americanization of these former Moors that the Moorish American Society of Philadelphia are guilty of. Relations continued at a slow pace for another 4 years, 7 years after the emperor's initial overtures to the Americans. In May of 1784, the Continental Congress resolved that treaties of amity or of amity and commerce be entered into with Morocco and the regencies of Algiers, Tunis, and Tripoli to continue for the same term of 10 years, or for a term as much longer as can be procured. After noting that the occupations of the war and distance of our situation have prevented our meeting, the emperor's friendship so early as we wished, Congress also resolved that a commission be issued to Mr. John Adams, Mr. B. Franklin, Benjamin Franklin, and Mr. T. Jefferson, Thomas Jefferson, giving powers to them. See, you got to give, so the state, right, coming from the head of state, gives full powers to certain diplomats to act on behalf of the state. So when we, in this movement, we teach you all that the head of state must put together a full powers letter to give the Minister of Foreign Affairs the authority to act on behalf of the state. This is government, y'all. We got to learn these things. I'm going to leave the Europeans here long enough to teach you how to run government. Who said that? Noble Ali. Okay. After noting that the occupations of the war and distance of our situation have prevented our meeting, the emperor's friendship so early as we wished, Congress also resolved that a commission be issued to Mr. John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Tom Jefferson, giving power to them to make and receive propositions for such treaties of amity and commerce, and to negotiate and sign the same, transmitting them to Congress for their final ratification, and that such commission be enforced for a term not exceeding 2 years. However, in Morocco, the emperor would not have known about these developments until months later. Feeling that he needed to do something dramatic to get the Americans' attention, he ordered the capture of an American ship and held it until until he was sure that progress was finally underway. In August 1785, Thomas Jefferson wrote to a friend at home, confirming the story, explaining, "You have been told with truth that the Emperor of Morocco," and look how they spelled Morocco, with an A, Morocco, right? And that's not a misspelling. That's the original way to spell Morocco. Has shown disposition to enter into treaty with us, but not truly that Congress has not attended to his advances and thereby disgusted him. His disposition continued good, right? Continue good. As a proof of this, he has lately released freely and clothed well the crew of an American brig he took last winter, right? So the Sultan was wilding. The new American special agent for Morocco, Thomas Barclay, was appointed in October 1785 and arrived in the country the following summer. See, the Sultan was also on some greedy stuff. He was trying to get money off the Americans. That's why he signed a treaty, and he wanted control over America and its commerce, so they can pay taxes, so he can generate new revenues. That's why he was trying to see to recognize them. It was a business move, really, right? So that's why that's how come in the treaty, that's obviously the Sultan is and the Empire are the dominant parties, the United States are the subordinate parties, and they are to pay taxes if they were going to do commerce in Morocco. And the Sultan was about that money, man. He was trying to get that bag out of the United States, right? So the new American special agent of, go ahead, you was going to say something?
And I'm thinking they both, the United States had independence on their mind, but they also had commerce on their mind.
Of course, they had the same, they all wanted the same thing.
They did.
The United States wanted something and the Sultan wanted something. The United States needed recognition, the Sultan wanted taxes. Okay, match made in heaven. Let's make it go. Let's make it happen. But y'all, you dragging your feet. So I'm gonna have to do something drastic here. Let me capture one of these ships.
Islam.
Sultan. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I was just gonna add that that might have been at least 100 years later. It might have been a strategic economic move for the Sultan. I'm not quite sure how the economics were in the empire around that time in the 1700s, but from what I've read regarding what the Moors were doing in the 1800s, it seemed that there was a lot of financial stress on the Sultan because Moors were avoiding taxes by becoming part of the legation of other nations. They're essentially either joining merchants or joining the consuls or whatever of other nations, so they can come under their protection, so they don't have to pay taxes to the Sultan.
Right.
So
there you go.
Moors were tax evading, right? By the millions, and it could have been much worse. And even the rep for the US, he was essentially saying that there's basically no way in hell the United States would ever allow something like that to happen with their government, basically. Right? But yeah, I guess essentially making other nations pay the empire taxes was like a good way to offset the losses from Moors not paying their taxes.
Exactly. There you go. And remember, you months, like probably a year ago. Remember, Hakeem, you gave us
yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking of actually about a year ago. And I was actually reading it last night when I was researching stuff to add to the study materials. But yeah, it's interesting, man. Moore's been skipping taxes centuries.
And that was the reason why the Moors ended up subjugated. He because remember on that in that document that we was going over a year ago, the Europeans was complaining to the Sultan, like, why are you giving us why are you putting them on our back? They don't want to pay taxes to you. What make you think they're gonna want to pay taxes to us? So the Sultan was like, nah, y'all gonna have to deal with them. And that's how we ended up subjugated under their jurisdiction. Because we ourselves were being belligerent. And to today we don't want to pay taxes, right? Isn't that what the Moorish American movement is all about? Being non-tax. You don't have to pay taxes.
There you go. Yep. There you go.
But he fell into debt with Spain, the Brits, and
that was later on.
Okay, yeah, and he worked his way out of that, but yeah, he laid down with dogs and came up with fleas.
But he worked. The only way he was able to work his way out of that was by giving up the authority to France due to the French protectorate. That was the purpose of the French protectorate, to have France assist him in dealing with the finances.
That's how he got the fleas off him. I got you.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And later on, Sultan Muhammad V decided, oh man, my ancestors were on some BS, man. I'm gonna have to declare my independence and go back to a kingdom and just let go of the empire if I wanted to get away from this French protectorate situation. So it was all his, like one thing about Taj, he said, he said that Taj was a lot of truth and falsehood combined, mixed, right?
Mixed. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I lost my train of thought while I brought him up. What was I saying?
You saying one thing about Taj, he does have the history.
He said law and history go together. That's what I was about to say. Law and history goes together, and that's absolutely true. You know what I'm saying? So it goes on. This is fascinating too. The new American special agent for Morocco, Thomas Barclay, was appointed in October 1785 and arrived in the country the following summer. Within a week of this arrival in June 1786, Barclay met twice with the emperor and was able to report that it will be agreeable for you to know that the last drought of the treaty is made. Drought. Interesting word. I've never read that or saw that word. And will probably be signed in a few days, and that our stay here will not exceed that of a week from this time. The treaty negotiations were completed by the middle of July 1786, and Barclay set out for Europe. It took another year for the treaty to go into effect, signed by two of the American ministers, John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. In January 1787, the treaty was ratified by Congress July of the same year, and finally signed by the President of Congress on July 18, 1787. It will remain in effect for 50 years, right? It had taken almost 10 years to bring the treaty to fruition, but when George Washington sat down to write his letter to the Emperor of Morocco, he knew that this friendship was significant. After explaining the change in the government with the adoption of the new constitution and introducing himself as the new head of the American government, Washington assured Sidi Muhammad that the encouragement which your majesty has been pleased generously to give to our commerce with your dominions, you see, the punctuality with which you have caused the treaty with us to be observed, make a deep impression on the United States and confirm their respect for attachment to your imperial majesty. That tells you right there that the United States is attached to the empire, which means that the United States is subordinate to the empire. Washington continued explaining that it gives me pleasure to have this opportunity of assuring your majesty that while I remain at the head of this nation, I shall not cease to promote every measure that may conduce to the friendship and harmony which so happily subsists between your empire and them. Washington closed with these words of blessing. May the Almighty bless your imperial majesty, our great and magnanimous friend, with his constant guidance and protection. Sadly, in keeping with the tenor of the confusing and complicated negotiations, Sidi Muhammad never received George Washington's letter. The emperor passed away 2 months before the missive arrived, right? And that's basically the end of the read, and you know, in reading this, I was just I got a thought came to break down, but I lost my train of thought. But okay, so um, okay, so that was a thought. So he never received this letter here, right? Um, let's go. The encouragement which your majesty has been pleased generously to give our commerce with your dominions, punctuality with which you have caused the treaty with us to be observed, and the just and generous measures taken in the case of Captain Proctor made a deep impression on the United States and confirmed their respect for and attachment to your imperial majesty. It gives me pleasure to have this opportunity of assuring your majesty that while I remain at the head of this nation, I shall not cease to promote every measure that may conduce to the friendship and harmony which so happily subsists between your empire and them, and shall esteem myself happy in every occasion of convincing your majesty of the high sense which in common with the whole nation I entertain of the magnanimity, wisdom, and benevolence of your majesty. In the course of the approaching winter, the national legislature, which is called by the former name of Congress, right, the legislative branch, will assemble, and I shall take care that nothing be omitted that may be necessary to cause the correspondence between our countries to be maintained and conducted in a manner agreeable to your majesty and satisfactory to all the parties concerned in it. Right, so that's how he closed off the letter, as the article was pointing out. But the point of interest that came to my mind in reading this: what year was this? May the Almighty bless your Imperial Majesty, our great magnanimous friend, with his constant guidance and protection. Written at the city of New York, the first day of December. What year? 1789, right? Can anybody tell me what happened in 1790?
That was was that the enemy the Enemy Act?
Talking about something that the Moors. I'm talking about something that the Moors like to use in court.
1790. You talking about something the Moorish Americans like to use in court?
That's right.
It's 1790.
Even till today, Jamal be standing on it.
The United States Constitution?
No.
He's not talking about the trading with the Enemy Act.
No, sundry free more.
Sundry free more, right? Sundry free more.
So
free Moors because they won.
So remember, it was South Carolina, and the Sundry Free Moors was trying to get away from the Negro Act and all that, right?
Right.
Teaching the legislator of South Carolina to go free, right?
Sundry free more, yeah.
And why did the now you can understand why South Carolina allowed that. Because they was trying to get that treaty signed. And they didn't want to piss off the Sultan by going against his people.
Mm-hmm.
How can you stand on something from 1790 when it's 2023? That's the Sundry Free More Act of 1790, the South Carolina legislation, which is, and here we go again with the misconcept. A Moorish American will be in Massachusetts standing on a South Carolina legislation. You see the foolishness? From 1790. Has nothing to do with you, sir. In this new day and age, the George Washington is gone, the empire is no longer around, and nobody cares about the Treaty of Peace and Friendship anymore. This was a pivotal time for the United States to be a part of that treaty. You see how he's kissing his butt, calling him all type of magnanimous friend, and thank you, and my attachment to you. He's kissing his butt. We're not even going to read today the other letter that he wrote to his son that was the successor to the empire after Sidi Muhammad passed away. He was kissing his butt even more because he was nervous that his son won't stand on the treaty, adhere to the principles of the treaty. He thought he was scared that he was going to just dissolve the treaty. So he was like, man, please. Okay, good. So he was crying to the Sultan, begging the new Sultan, the son who succeeded the father who passed away, Sidi Muhammad, in the next letter, begging him, right, to please don't honor your father's agreement with us, the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. That's essentially what he was doing with the Sultan, the new Sultan, the son who took over. So that was a pivotal moment for the United States, why they even accepted the Sundry Free Moors. You see? So we have a bad misconception about what the Sundry Free Moors Act is, what the Dred Scott case is about. We got all types of misconceptions, and we're using it wrong. It's a South Carolina legislation. So if you're in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New York, California, you can't stand on something from South Carolina. Oh my God. Any questions or concerns? It's 10 o'clock. We didn't even get to the charter with so much information today. I'll open up the floor for comments, questions, concerns.
Islam, this is Yashua L. About the intentions at this point in time when the relationship with Morocco and the United States at that point in time, the letter that refers to the money or tribute that was due to the empire was accruing interest at this point. And is that a factor in our reestablishing diplomatic relations and the accruing of that tribute, if you will, to present day Islam? I yield.
Well, we're talking about two different time frames. If I have your question correct, this is when the United States was just barely being established. It was a new country. The loans that I believe you're referring to are the loans that Abdel Aziz, which is the Sultan. Can't remember when he came into the picture, but he's the Sultan who summoned all the states to put together the Act of Algeciras. The Act of Algeciras was the treaty to try to deal and solve that financial problem from that loan that he took from Spain and Great Britain, right? And so that's the reason why he was given advice from Germany to bring the empire back into bring the Moors back into the constitutional fold of government, right? As the Moxons and the Moorish government authority. But they all failed to do so. And he had to act fast because these loans were coming due. So the only thing else left for him to do was to get with France and enact the Treaty of Fez and give up the power of the pen, the authority over the empire. Let me go to it. I think it's this one. The government of the French Republic and the government of His Sharifian Majesty reserve unto themselves the right to determine by mutual agreement the basis of a financial reorganization, which, while respecting the rights conferred upon bondholders of the Moroccan public loans, shall make it possible to guarantee the commitments of the Sharifian treasury and to collect regularly the revenues of the empire. Right, and that was given. The French government was given the authority to do that. His Sharifian Article 8, His Sharifian Majesty declares that in future he will refrain from contracting directly or indirectly any public or private loan and from granting in any form, whatever, any concession without the authorization of the French government. You see? So since you can't handle your financial affairs, Sultan, the French government will take over that aspect of the empire for you, and you have nothing to say about it.
Islam. From George Washington to Sidi Muhammad, December 1st, 1787, in the paragraph where he's specifically is going into the bounty of the soil. Well, we greatly regret that the hostile position of the regencies towards this nation, who have never injured them, is not to be removed, and the terms in our power to comply within our territories, there are no mines either of gold or silver, and this young nation, just recovering from the waste and desolation of a long war, have not yet had the time to acquire the riches by agriculture and commerce. But our soil is bountiful and our people are industrious, and we have reason to flatter ourselves that we shall gradually become useful to our friends.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is that reference towards alleviating that specific debt you're talking about?
No.
Or is that an effort to assure the Moroccan government that some of the financial obligations of this young nation will be met and being reassured per this letter?
This is a great question, but it's a simple answer. What he's saying, where is it in the letter? He was will apologize and account for your majesty's not having receiving those regular advices and marks of attention. So he was apologizing that he hasn't been paying his taxes to the Sultan. So down here where you're referring to, he's trying to say, man, listen, we can do it. We will do it because we are an industrious people. The problem is that we don't have any gold. We don't have any silver. We're a young nation recovering from a desolation of war. He's giving them excuses as to why he hasn't been able to pay his taxes to the Sultan. So it's the other way around, basically. George Washington is saying that he's going to be paid. He's trying to give them excuses as to why he hadn't paid the taxes to the Sultan yet, but he will be paying those taxes essentially, right? As far as what I'm referring to on the Treaty of Peace and the Treaty of Fez, this happened in 1912. This right here is in the early 1700s when the United States was just coming into existence. It's two totally different scenarios. The Sultan contracted with Great Britain and Spain in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and the empire fell into debt because of those loans, and it started spiraling out of control. That's why they established the Act of Algeciras to bring back the Moors, to help with the financial aspects, but bring back giving us back control over the banking system, right? But we weren't brought back into power. So, like I said earlier, the Sultan had to act fast. So he got with France to establish the Treaty of Fez. That's a different scenario. That's the empire and the Sultan being in debt to Great Britain and Spain. This right here, what you're referring to, is another scenario. It's George Washington and the United States owing taxes to the emperor or the Sultan. And that's why he's saying we greatly regret, what he said, with our territories, there are no mines either of gold or silver, and this young nation just recovering of the waste and desolation. That's all excuses as to why we haven't paid the taxes. That's why in the beginning he said, will apologize and account for your majesty's not having received those regular advices and marks of attention. That's the taxes that he hasn't been paying.
Is that my question, to be very more to the point, is that particular arrangement compounding and accruing to present day Islam?
Great question. I don't know. I'm not sure if we can take it back that far. What we can do, though, the taxes that's owed to us, right? That's a great question. I appreciate that question. As far as we're concerned, the WRC and this movement here, we're starting off with the Act of Algeciras of 1906. We're not going back to 1789. Not sure if we could even enforce that. But we can definitely enforce the Act of Algeciras.
That was the precedent that was set.
What was that?
I said, yeah, that was the precedent that was set.
Yeah.
Right there in 1906. But it was good pointing out that George Washington, he was the one scratching where he didn't itch, but right. Then there was one
That was a great. I got to give that, brother. That applause to you, good brother. That was a great question. Go ahead, brother.
Oh yes, yes. As a matter of fact, I jumped in there. If the brothers yields, I'll continue. But if he's not done, I'll yield.
Wasn't quite finished, but the reason for bringing it to the floor was that the George Washington kept referring to a contract or prior agreement, and if I'm not mistaken, is that prior agreement the one that's still standing today?
That agreement would be the Treaty of Peace and Friendship.
Islam now referred to as the Treaty of Peace and Friendship of 1836,
Correct.
being that the prior one had lapsed in time, but the new one, which is the 1836, now in force to this day and is part of international law and is ceded to, etc., by the United States and us. So since he's referring to George Washington, when I say he is who I'm referring to, since George Washington is referring to this agreement, which grandfathers into the 1836, to my perspective, and I could be wrong, then that agreement slash contract slash treaty and the debts attached to it are still owed and accruing. If I'm wrong, I leave it open for correction. Islam.
I don't think you're wrong, and I'm not sure how right you are, because this was a circumstance at the time in 1789, right? So did he stop?
According to the United Nations, that treaty's still in effect.
No. What I'm talking about is
since it's still in effect, all agreements.
Let me finish what I'm saying. You're absolutely correct. It's still in full force and effect. Don't get me twisted. As we were just reading, is the longest standing treaty. What I'm saying is, between the times of 1789 to 1880, have they been paying the taxes? Because if they have already been paying the taxes, then there's nothing owed. You see, that's the point that I'm making.
Well, of course, then some accounting will be done. What I'm getting at is that George Washington referred to that lease agreement, which is the treaty, which is still standing.
Correct.
So an accounting, or shall I say, an audit would be more specific. An audit would need to be done on both sides to see where the books are now, in order to settle that and bring the account current. Islam, I yield.
Fair enough. I hear you on that. I'm not even against you. I ain't even mad at you, bro. That's something that that's a bridge that we can cross when we get there. But what we do know is that at the very least, we can begin with the act of Algeciras. And, once we get there, perhaps we can do an audit and take it that far back, if need be, things of that nature. So yeah, I'm there with you. That's something that can be discussed going forward. As of now, though, the focus is the act of Algeciras. Great point. Great question. That's something to be considered. Islam, good brother. I appreciate that one. Excellent.
Brother Yields.
Islam. I right before I yield, when it comes to the you know what, this question is better saved for another time, because I have a feeling that it will be addressed way more clearly, along the lines of genocide issue and the water. But I yield. Thank you for your time and focus on.
No. Let's go with it, brother. It's all good. Let's see what we got. Let's roll with it.
Okay. Fluoride is rat poison. It's a component of genocide, and genocide is being addressed on the international platform on several conventions and treaties, and now and in addition to, but not limited to, the wrongful acts of states and its responsibility to correct these wrongful acts, when it comes to their obligation to cease and desist the wrongful act, then reparations. All of this is being addressed, I think, in just reading it. Give me a second.
I know which treaty you're talking about. I can't think of the name, right? Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It's for wrongful acts of states in year 2001. to
Correct,
be
correct.
specific.
That one.
Yeah,
Yep.
Islam. So, as it stands, we're being poisoned that can be tracked, traced, and admitted to in our water. The water we bathe with, the water we brush our teeth with, the water we cook with, and etc. Fluoride is still to this very day. So the time frame from us putting it into legislation and the time frame of us going to ICJ or any other factor, could legislation be put into place to stop the fluoridization of the water in our prospective states where the states are already up, functioning, competent, and recognized? Islam, I yield.
Yes, we could definitely. I mean, legislation is the key, right? Legislation would solve all our problems. The question is, will they adhere to it in this very moment? Probably not. This is where the ICJ comes into play, right? Thereafter, the ICJ, oh, there's absolutely no doubt they're going to have to address that if we make a strong push on that matter, especially by way of legislation. They definitely will have to take care of that. See, when we take back control of the great enterprise, we take back control of the Food and Drug Administration. So we take control of everything. So it's just really a matter once we adjudicate once the ICJ adjudicate them and we gain a favorable judgment from the ICJ, letting the United States know that they need to fall in line and come up under the authority of the Moroccan state and the empire. We, of course, yeah, we could definitely set forth legislation to have them clean all that up, no doubt. And it's not limited to the water. That's the food as well. All the pesticides, and I mean, you name it. It's incredible how much poison they have in the foods and the water and everything else. Kool-Aid. I mean, everything. This is based on the administrative reforms that's in the Treaty of Fez and the Act of Algeciras. We must institute these reforms to clean up the mess that they have left, that the corruption that they have created. We must reform it, right? So they have corrupted everything. We need reforms to clean it all up. So to answer your question, yes, that's definitely a thing that can be done. No question about that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, Islam. So since it's a time sensitive matter, meaning that it's a certain amount of poison that the body can take, right?
Correct.
And yes, it is a time sensitive matter, and I say that because each human body can only withstand a certain amount of intake of poison, and then it's only a matter of time before the body starts to show signs of dying. So yes, it's a time sensitive matter to such a degree that is it possible that legislation can be put in place where at least on the state level it's addressed while waiting for the day of a hearing or whatever? Do we still have to consume or be exposed to the poison while we're waiting for justice to be administered on an international level? Is it possible that it can be dealt with friendly application along those lines on the state level while we're waiting for justice on an international platform? Islam.
Let me put it this way. Excuse me. If they were to adhere to our legislation at the moment that we submit it to them, right, ratified and submitted to them, if they were to adhere to it in a timely manner as we desire, and they relinquish, which would mean that they would be really relinquishing the jurisdiction to us, then guess what? There wouldn't be no need for the ICJ because they're acquiescing. The reason we're training for a 15-round fight, even though it might be a 12-round bout, right? So yes, we can set forth legislation right now to deal with that matter right now, right? But then the question is, yes, it's a time-sensitive situation, and it ain't just based on the water. It's really everything across the board, really, right? Where we need justice now on all levels. But the question is will they adhere to it at this very moment? And I doubt it. right? Because they don't want to just give up control that easy. And this is the reason why the ICJ is being used as a strong consideration to finalize everything should in case consular court does not prevail, because consular court must adjudicate against the United States, period, right? So we go through the due process: mediation, arbitration, conciliation, arbitration, right? Adjudication. If the consular court, if the adjudication coming from consular court is not adhered to, this is then where we have to take it to the ICJ. So it's a due process that's taking place. And so if they don't adhere to the laws, then we have to continue on the same path, the same fight to get to the ICJ. If they do adhere to the legislation and adhere to our laws and adhere to our Moroccan laws and our Moroccan governments and states in the consular court, then obviously there wouldn't be no need for the ICJ. And we can just settle this thing between us two based on a friendly application as it relates to Article 22 of the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. So it's the question is, will they adhere to it without having to go to the ICJ? If so, then yes, we can get it done now. If they don't adhere to it, we cannot call to arms. So the only thing else left now is to go to the ICJ. And that will be just the due process of law that we're just going to have to deal with, unfortunately, good brother. But that is what it is. It's called the due process of decolonization.
Islam for the clarity.
Islam.
Thank you.
Thank you for those excellent questions. I appreciate that. And it tells me that you have some serious concerns. And it also tells me that you're studying, because you're talking about certain international documents, conventions, and agreements that a lot of Muslims aren't really aware of unless they're studying it or looking into it. So excellent on your part, good brother. Islam. Next question.
Yeah, I want to thank the brother as well. What was that brother's appellation that just?
I'm not sure. What is your name, good brother? And are you working with any of our states?
Islam. Yahshua El Hajib for Anthony, Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Islam, good brother. Yeah.
All right, Anthony. That's great. That's great to know. So let me see. Yeah, I like the stimulating question, and I like your stimulating response to that. And I know that vampires must feed, and they're not going to stop and say, "Oh, well, your blood is sacred. We ain't going to suck yours." Okay. But the question I have for you was some clarity around the Treaty of Fez, because I know somewhere in study lessons 54 to 57, I understood the Noble J to say that that the Sultan did pay off his debts, that he paid off his debts, and the only reason why that he went into statehood and gave up the empire is because he saw they were swarming all over Africa, and he saw them colonizing Africa. How they had divided that up, and that's what helped him make his decision to go into statehood.
Well, those debts that were paid off was done by France. France is the one who settled that matter on behalf of the Sultan and the empire. However, France didn't want to give up the pen. They didn't want to give up the power fire. Right. So the only way for the Sultan to gain independence from the French protectorate was to demote himself from Sultan to king and establish the modern state known as the Kingdom of Morocco in 1956. And that's the reason why he did it, to get away from the French protectorate situation that his ancestors put him into by signing up with the Treaty of Peace and the Treaty of Fez with France.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Second question: does the Amazi people, who are commonly known today as Berbers, they have they can go for states' rights as well in Morocco?
And when you say in Morocco, you talking about the empire, or you talking about the kingdom?
The kingdom, yeah.
Can they go for state rights?
The indigenous people of Morocco, the indigenous people of Morocco that are called Berbers, but I understand that they're the Amazi people.
Right.
Can they take over that as well? Can they reclaim that? Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I would say yes. This is an educated guess, an hypothesis, based on understand. The question is though, well, the thing is that they would have to, in order for them to be able to do what we're doing, they would have to go through the same measures that we're going through, which is invoking the several treaties that we're invoking, right? The treaty
Yeah.
of Dr. Saris, because they would also be considered subjugated Moors,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Under the Moroccan the Kingdom of Morocco,
Yeah.
which is still a colonial state, really, because
Yeah.
the indigenous people there are not Arabs; they're Moors. It's the Amazighites, right? But
Yes.
there would be also, and they got their own flag too, by the way,
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah.
So I would say yes. If I were to if I were to make an educated guess on this, I would say no doubt, and definitely once the empire comes back into existence through us, right? They potentially could petition us to assist them with that matter.
We can help them raise a whole lot of hell. What about
Yeah.
a whole lot of heaven? I mean, are they any relation to the Bedouins? Are the Bedouins the same?
I'm not sure because I'm not familiar with the Bedouins.
Okay, yeah, they're desert people, but they look like us.
I mean, anyone that look like us, they have the right and the authority
Right.
to regain their independence from the colonial state of any of these colonists.
I yield. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. There was a sister that had a question. I heard the voice. You know, I know a girl voice whenever I hear it.
You better.
Sister, you got a question you want to go ahead and ask? Or whoever else?
Actually, it was way a little bit earlier. This is Benicia Octanon Bay. Wazir.
It's Ron Wazir of Carolina.
Yes. It goes back to when we were talking about being grandfathered in. I wanted to see if that was mainly what they were, what you guys when you were saying. I forgot what we were talking about because we've talked about a couple
He
of
was
different.
talking about the taxes.
Right. Is it possible that could be what what could be there for us because it is grandfathered land?
It is possible. Yeah. I would say yes, especially based on an audit, like the brother pointed out. I mean, if they owe the empire, they owe the empire. But we got to study. I got to do a little. The answer to that is actually in the France versus United States case. And I can't recall the language that talks about these debts that's owed and all this stuff because
the consumption taxes.
Yeah, right. The consumption taxes and stuff with the United States claiming that they don't have to pay taxes and something. I can't recall clearly. That's something that I'd have to get back with you all on. Because the ICJ did their rule, the ICJ case did talk about consumption taxes and other taxes that both France and the United States were saying that they didn't have. I think it was France that said that they didn't have to pay it, or it was the United States. I'm not clear on that one. There's a bit of confusion in my head on that. I have to go back and study that a little
The
bit.
United States was saying because of the favorite nation clause, that they were
Yes.
obligated.
Correct. Yeah, the United
France.
States was saying they didn't have to pay that. That's
Yeah,
what they're
they-
saying, but that they're required to send.
Dre, thank you, brother, for helping me out here. Yep. That was something that was being discussed in the France versus United States case. So it may not be possible for us to go that far back. We may be limited to the treaty, the Act of Algeciras. Let me do some further research on that, and I'll get back with you all on that with that answer next week. So somebody take notes on that question, and we'll talk about it further next week, so I can be a little bit more clear. I'm not 100 on that. I don't want to make up anything, but I know definitely 1906 is the date for sure. That's no question. Islam, did that answer your question?
I thought France was like collecting the tax.
Correct. They were collecting the taxes.
So we can collect it twice?
Can they collect it twice?
So can we collect it again
Oh,
since France collected the first time?
yeah, we can. It's our. It was. They were acting on our behalf.
Gotcha. Islam.
Right.
Gotcha.
Right. I mean, hell, which means then that all the signatory powers owe taxes to the empire if they haven't been paying it, and that's where, like the brother was saying, that's when an audit comes into play.
That audit is going to be a long process. I'm just letting you know right now. This is why you're Dre. That audit and that process is more than you can imagine. You couldn't even talk about it. To be honest, it's so deep, and plus there's still other things that we have to abide by the treaty according to the triple principle of box number 3 when it comes to economic liberty without any inequality. That itself is another administrative process that the Moors really don't have a clue about yet. So as we're figuring out the administrative process now, that box number 3 is going to be the whole another world in itself. So yes, it's going to take some time, but yes, it goes back to at least the Act of Sarah's 1906 for sure. That is definitely for sure. I yield.
Thank you, Wazir and Vice Chairman of the WRC. This is DeAndre Dre Bay, Wazir of AMPAG, and the co-chairman of the WRC. It's always great to hear your voice, good brother, and anyone from the WRC for that matter. Y'all come help me. They beating me up with questions. I love it though. Just playing.
Seems like you got it. You answer them just fine. Shoot, these are tough questions. You got it, brother.
Islam, brother.
Sticking and moving. You sticking and moving, man.
Yeah, it is 10:30, and it's time to cut it off, cut it short. So just to say, we've got a lot of work to do, as you heard what the Wazir said. These audits, the economic liberty we have gone so long in acquiescence that all the work has been backed up. So now we got to go back and do it all over again. However, there is good news. We can always go with the lowest hanging fruit, which I've already spoken about. Right, we can start charging taxes now, right, while we work out the kinks regarding any previous taxes that's owed, right? So it's not like we cannot in economic inequality taxes and new revenues that they owe, meaning that not necessarily going back to the hundreds or even the taxes discussed based on the 1906 Act of Algeciras, but what it is today, right? So we can start from today forward as the low hanging fruit while we work out the kinks based on the audit from 1906, or even if we can even go back to the 1700s. So it's not like we can't gain economic liberty without any inequality once we come back from the ICJ. It's a thing. The bag is at the end of the road, regardless. It just won't be as big a bag as if we were to do an audit going 100 years back, right? But we don't have to just depend on that. We can work on the lowest hanging fruit of today. You see, so there's nothing lost here. It's just a matter of the focus here is decolonizing. We got to decolonize first, because without decolonizing, ain't no need to even talk about the money. Ain't no need to even talk about the taxes or the new revenues that are owed. Right. So the main focus, boys, is decolonization, and also keep in mind that how does that saying go? To whom is given much is
required.
There you go. Right. So what I'm saying with that is, hey, listen, we are as it relates to the American jurisdiction, we're responsible for 300 million or so people. Once this thing expands worldwide, we will be now responsible for 7 billion people. Keep that in mind while you're talking about the money. Because it's a lot of work, a lot of responsibility that goes into this, right? We literally have the power to eradicate homelessness and poverty forever, because our wealth is so large that we can share our wealth with the world and still be more than I. Okay? So let's keep that in mind. Remember, it's all about uplifting fallen humanity. It's not about the money. The money will come. It's about uplifting fallen humanity, bringing about love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice on planet Earth for all of humanity, not just us as a people, but all people, all nationalities. We just finished reading the human rights section of the United Nations website, and it talks about it's all nationalities, all peoples, all cultures, right, deserve human rights, their human rights to be respected and adhered to, right? We're all born with the inalienable and unalienable rights that was given to the bestowed upon us, Most High, God, Allah, whatever you believe in. And so therefore the Moors here on planet Earth, it's our job to ensure that the people of the planet are okay, that everything is all right with them. That, as I told y'all earlier, there's an American, a white girl on TikTok this video was shared with me. She was crying out for the Moors, but she referred to us as black, to come back with a new constitution that would bring equality to all of humanity. This is so if she's thinking that, trust me, she's not the only one. And that's not the only video that I've seen like that from white people. The whole world is looking to us to bring love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice to all of humanity. So while you're thinking about the money, think about the responsibilities involved, and that's the key. We have to be responsible for 700 million people. But in order to gain that, in order to even get to the economic liberty aspect, we have to first decolonize. And in order to decolonize, we must come together, establish our states. So all of you out there who are interested in decolonization, please hit us up at the WRC, right? Dre, what's the email? The WRC, what's the email? Wazir
Regional Council at gmail.com.
Here we go. Wazir Regional Council at gmail.com. Appreciate it, Akil. That's the he's the president of the Trusteeship Council in the Wazir of Meru State, right? Wazir Regional Council at gmail.com. And by the way, yeah, well, I forgot to mention that is anyone in the North Carolina territory, specifically a female that would like to be a part of the Moroccan state in North Carolina, hit us up at Wazir Regional Council at gmail.com. Right. Reminder, we have the state of the charter colony of Colorado, the charter colony of Oregon, Georgia, Indiana, Texas, North Carolina, Michigan. Those are the current recognized states. If any of you out there in those territories want to be a part of the state and help uplift fallen humanity, hit us up at the Wazir Regional Council at gmail.com. We also have other political groups forming coming online. That'll be California, Florida, man, there's so many of them. Illinois, New York, Rhode Island, Alabama, Massachusetts, Ontario, Canada.
Ontario, Canada. Islam.
Somebody put in there Ohio. Somebody just
South Carolina. South Carolina. I already mentioned those. Anyone in those areas, in those territories that's here that would hear this at some point in the future.
Reach out.
What was that?
I was saying, just please reach out.
Yeah, please reach out. If you want to be a part of the state and take part in uplifting fallen humanity, right, and decolonize the land that belongs to you and your ancestors. Right now, this is the way to make your ancestors proud. This is going back into the mindset of your ancient foremothers and forefathers, right? The Wazir Regional Council at gmail.com. For further erudition, AMPAG study sessions on YouTube, AMP study sessions, or AMPAG Media on YouTube for further erudition on these matters dealing with decolonization, learning international law and statehood, and obviously AMPAG Media on YouTube as well. Islam. So this was an excellent bill. I appreciate all the great questions. And with that, I will close out the meeting, North Star. Okay. Thank you very much.
Long live the empire.
Love and prosperity to everybody.
Islam.
May the
Peace and
forces of
love.
Allah be upon you all.
Islam family, peace and love, everyone.
Love you all. Love you all.
Great
Peace and love.
class. Thank you, Wazia.
Long live the empire.
Long live
Long
the
live the
empire.
empire.
That's right.
Islam.
Islam.